Happy Friday morning, everyone. Today is May 13, 2022, and hashtag Team LRC is back for a new set of learning sessions through our webinar series entitled Research is Life, How to Ace Your Research Paper. So, kumusta po ang bawat isa sa atin? Good morning po sa inyo. It's indeed a TGIF to all of us. Kaya naman sulitin natin ang ating Friday with a learning session about research. So kaya naman po sa mga nakatutok sa FB Live, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Let us know kung saan po kayo nanonood ngayong Friday morning. So please comment them down below. So shout out po sa ating early birds, sina Lay Lagilias from Camarines Norte State College. Good morning. Ma'am Jojo Rington, good morning po sa iyo. Si Miss Lay Fajardo, good morning. From UP Manila, Francis Mina, good morning po sa ating mga ka-UP. From Bautista National High School, Senior High School. So shout out sa ating mga senior high. So hindi ka pa kayo babatiin isa-isa. So shout out po sa inyong mga masisipag na senior high school students from Bautista National High School. Ang ating mga very active students since session 1, no? Yan. Shout out kay Ate Miss Cheryl Hermosa Ebron. Good morning po sa iyo. Watching sa kanyang bahay po dito sa amin sa Forestry. Hi Ate She. Let's see. From San Pablo City, Laguna, mga ka-San Pablo, hello. Miss Mary Jane Bolaños Lopez. Good morning po. Let's read po. Ang dami natin kasama ngayon na. Let's see. From Ifugao State University. Wow, ang layo. Miss Jessie Erhedor. Good morning po sa inyo. Ang dami natin kasama ngayon, no? Si Jane S. Flores, a research teacher, wow, of Banton National High School, Senior High sa Romblon. Wow, ating mga research teachers, sama-sama po tayo dito na matututo, both students at mga teachers, di ba? From PUP Santa Maria Bulacan Campus, Dante Rivera, good morning po sa inyo. So ito, madami na pong pumapasok sa ating FB Live. So from Pampanga State Agricultural University, Bernadette Diesta, good morning po sa inyo and sa lahat pa ng sasali sa atin ngayong umagang ito. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. So kung wala pa po dito ang inyong mga friendships, classmates, colleagues, students, ating mga teachers, no, ay itag na po natin sila dito sa ating FB Live at i-share niyo na rin po ang ating video para sama-sama po tayong matuto ngayong umagang ito. So as of this morning, grabe, na overwhelmed kami ng bonggang-bongga. We already have around 7,500 registered participants. If I'm not mistaken, ito ating record-breaking namin na number of participants sa lahat ng naging webinar series namin dito sa LRC. So talagang full force tayong lahat, mga teachers, research teachers, mga students from high school, college, and sa graduate school, at ang lahat ng ating mga researchers, aspiring researchers na sama-sama po tayong lalaban para i-ace ang ating mga research papers. At especially sa ating mga graduating na mga scholars ng Bayan para sa Bayan, kapit lang po tayo at ating sabay-sabay i-manifest ang #SablaiQT 2022. Sablay 2022 QT pala. So, sorry po. So, nalilito pa ako sa ganyan mga hashtags eh. So, konting kayod pa ating mga students from UP. Ilang araw na lang po, ilang linggo na lamang po. Tinatapos ko na agad. No? Ilang linggo na lamang po ay matatapos na ang ating semestre. For sure, ay pinapolish or pina-finalize na natin ang ating mga thesis. So, sama-sama po tayong lalaban para sa ating mga sablay. Diba? So, I hope on board na po tayong lahat. Time check, it's already 9:04 in the morning. Welcome to Research is Life, How to Ace Your Research Paper. So for this webinar series, our team, #Team LRC, prepared 10 sessions for us to fully appreciate the value of research in our life as teachers and students, as well as to learn different tips and strategies on how to further improve our research papers. Especially, sabi ko nga kanina, para sa ating mga students who are currently working on their thesis or dissertations. So I am Joshua Michael G. Jonas, University Research Associate of the UPLB Learning Resource Center, and yours truly will be our webinar's moderator. So we are now on the 8th session entitled Quality Assured Qualitative Research and Data Analysis. So sa mga sumama sa ating kahapon, ay pinag-usapan natin ang quantitative research and yung mga different statistical tools na maaari nating gamitin sa ating mga research studies or sa ating mga kanya-kanyang methodologies. So we are down to 2 more sessions pero hindi pwedeng hindi natin pag-uusapan yung other side, which is the qualitative aspect of research. So kung sa quantitative research, nabanggit ni Sir Enzo, we make use of different statistical analysis or tool. Yung, di ba, binanggit ni Sir na ang statistics ay para siyang toolbox. You must know which tool you must use for a given study or research. So ngayong araw naman na ito, paano naman kung ikaw as the researcher yung tool na yon? So paano nga ba natin pinapasok yung mga theories sa ating research, sa ating frameworks? Ano nga ba yung mga essential steps or tips when it comes to yung tinatawag natin na coding and data construction sa ating qualitative research? So lahat ng yan ay malalaman natin ngayong umagang ito. Okay. So just a few friendly reminders. Number 1, at all times, please keep your comments helpful and considerate to the speaker, moderator, and to your fellow participants. Second, if you have questions, feel free to write them down below our comment section, and please make sure that they are relevant for our topic this morning. Lastly, please do not forget to answer the evaluation form after the webinar. Our team will deeply appreciate your comments and suggestions. Please also be reminded that the deadline of submission of responses will only be until 10 p.m. tonight. So I'm sure many of you have been sending us emails since last night. So kung hindi nyo pa po natatanggap ang inyong mga e-certificate from Session 7, please be patient mga kaibigan. Dadating po yan as long as you answered the evaluation form. So please bear with us. We are dealing with hundreds of emails with regards to certificates. So dadating at dadating po yan. So please be patient po sa ating mga kaibigan. Okay? So for those who will not be able to join us today because you have an equally important matters or another meeting to attend to, don't you worry. You can always watch the replay of our sessions on our Facebook page. Nakita nga po ko kanina, we already have around 94,600 strong followers. So talaga namang feeling ko after every session ay dumadagdag pong aming followers. At dahil dyan po ay tumataba po lalo ang aming mga puso dito sa #Team LRC. At ito ay nagsisilbing inspirasyon sa amin para mag-keep moving forward. So maraming salamat po sa inyong walang hanggang suporta po sa aming programa dito sa LRC. Likewise, you can also watch the recorded sessions on YouTube. So just search UPLB Learning Resource Center. And we now have around 2.99K subscribers. So please continue to like, share, and subscribe. So also click the notification bell to keep you posted with our recent videos or webinars. We would also like to invite you to follow and connect with us on Twitter, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So kindly use our official hashtag for this webinar series. For the 8th time, papanindigan natin na #ResearchIsLife. So hindi mabubuo ang ating buhay kung walang research. So also, para mabilis din natin makita ang lahat ng videos sa ating webinar series using that hashtag. So talagang paninindigan natin ang hashtag na yan mga kaibigan hanggang sa tulo, even after this webinar series na #ResearchIsLife. Okay, so before we proceed with our session, to the main part of our session, let's first have a short energizer para naman magising-gising ang ating mga puso at diwa ngayong umagang ito. So sa ating mga suki na ng ating webinars, alam niyo na po ang gagawin, hindi na kailangan sabihin yan. Go to www.menti.com, use the key code that you see on your screen, which is 44223371. At makikita nyo po si BTS. Joke, hindi. May sasagutan po tayong question para sa ating Mentimeter. Okay? So again, it's 44223371. So allow me to put it also in the comment section para mabilis po nating mapuntahan. Ayan. And allow me to share my screen and we'll proceed with our energizer for this morning. So let's see. Oops, sorry. Wait lang. So I'm already seeing responses. So allow me to share my screen. Ayan. Okay. So tingnan natin. Ano nga ba? Oh, so this is just one question, mga our dear participants. I'm very sure that you've heard, especially sa ating mga senior high school students who are from the humanities and social sciences strand, I'm very sure that you have heard about qualitative research. So ang tanong ko sa inyo, or ang tanong para sa ating energizer for this morning, what is qualitative research all about? Or ano ba ang pumapasok sa ating mga isipan kapag narinig natin ang qualitative research? So, I'm very sure quantitative research ay mas familiar kayo, tama. Pero ano nga ba ang qualitative research? So, ano nga bang ating mga responses dito sa ating Mentimeter? Let's see. Descriptive, in-depth understanding. So also this would also help our resource speaker here in the Zoom space to have an idea. Ano nga bang inyong perception or current knowledge about qualitative research? So tingnan natin to. Non-numerical, for the about discrete traits, quality and description, cases or phenomenon, experiences. So uses open-ended questions, quality and description, theory making, wow, very interesting, opinions, case studies. Let's see, ano pa ba to? About quality, human lived experiences, very good ideas. Let's see. Perspective, category ranking, a process of naturalistic, analyzing non-numerical data, no? Let's see. And we'll learn later na with our speaker kung tama nga bang ating mga kaalaman tungkol sa qualitative research. Tingnan natin, pabuti nga natin ng mga 55 responses. Or pwedeng try natin ng 60. Tingnan natin. So at least may idea tayo kung ano nga ba ang quality research. So tama ba itong ating mga 10 more respondents. Let's wait. Marami pong pasok sa ating Zoom ay sa ating sa ating FB Live, no? May 400 tayo nakasama ngayon. So, tingnan natin. Pabuti natin ng 60. About data, understanding people. Human lives, sometimes subjective. Let's see. Data gathered from observation. Inquiry of social phenomena. Oh, ganda ng ating mga ideas, no? In-depth understanding. Record keeping. Subjective reality. Ayan, okay. Description of variables. I think, so dito sa ating word cloud, makikita natin ng the largest word is descriptive, in-depth understanding, non-numerical, naturalistic inquiry, and various phenomena. So thank you very much sa mga nag-participate sa ating energizer. So at least our speaker already has an idea. Ano nga bang ating understanding when it comes to qualitative research? Okay. So let's go now to the main part of our session kasi for sure marami tayong mapag-uusapan ngayong araw na ito, especially for our participants who are not yet quite familiar about qualitative research. So allow me to introduce to you our very special speaker for this morning. Assistant Professor John Mervin L. Embate is an assistant professor at the Department of Educational Communication, College of Development Communication, here in UP Los Baños. So he finished his undergraduate degree of Bachelor of Science in Development Communication, major in Development Journalism, cum laude nga lang naman, here at UPLB, and also in his Master of Arts in Communication at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where he was awarded as the best thesis. So he has authored and co-authored a number of publications and presented a handful of researches in both national and international conferences. He has handled courses here in UPLB on communication research, communication theory, multimedia production and management, media-based learning system, development journalism, and interpersonal communication in development. He is a member of the Asian Congress for Media and Communication and the Association of Development Communication Educators and Practitioners of the Philippines. At present, he is our director here at the UPLB Learning Resource Center under the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. Dear friends, here to share with us insights about qualitative research, please welcome in the Zoom space Assistant Professor John Mervin L. Embate. Sir JM, good morning po.
Hi, Josh. Good morning,
Good
and good
morning,
morning
sir.
to everyone.
Long time no see, sir.
So, long time no see. At kung makikita natin mga viewers, twinning kami ni Josh ngayon. We're wearing the same shirt.
Yes.
Kasi
Opo,
here in
sir.
LRC, we are a team. At dahil team kami, we also have the same wavelength at pare-pareho kami ng mga shirt and sense of fashion.
Thank you, sir. Sige po, sir. You now have the Zoom space. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much, Josh. Please allow me to share my screen. Kumusta po ang lahat sa atin? Sana ay nasa maayos tayong kalagayan. Oops, sorry. Wait lang. Sige, habang share ko yung screen ko, no, nakita natin kanina yung mga responses ng mga participants natin. At talaga may kita natin, no, na halos lahat sila, they have a really good understanding of what qualitative research is all about. No? So hopefully itong session natin today will provide us with more information, no, that could help them ace their research paper if they're doing qualitative data analysis, no, or for those who are just starting out, no, to explore the territory of qualitative research, to have a more profound appreciation of what qualitative research is all about, no. So kagaya na nabanggit ni Josh, no, here I am to present, to share some of my knowledge, no, about qualitative research, no. But before I begin, I would like to tell everyone, no, siguro a little bit of a disclaimer somehow, no, that my presentation today is well, really a simplified version of how we can conduct qualitative research, no. Those who have already done it before might probably find the presentation too simplistic or reductive, no. But I hope that the young researchers here tuning who are with us here on Zoom will find the information helpful for their research. I would also like to clarify that this presentation focuses on qualitative research design in the social sciences, with a particular focus on data collected through interviews, group discussions, or participant observations. And for that reason, criticisms and qualitative analysis in interpretive analysis in the arts and humanities, like writing philosophical papers or doing literary and cultural studies research and even semiotics, are not included, no, in our research, in our presentation for today. That's why, no, for especially for educators who are here with us on the Facebook Live, no, you might want to view the playback of the webinar series by the Office of for Institutional Development in Higher Education of UPLB or OIDE, because they have provided for us and are still providing, because the webinar series is not yet over, no, a more nuanced or specific introduction or explanation to various research designs, no, depending on the kind of analysis that researchers would like to pursue. Now, for my presentation today, no, to reiterate, this is an introduction or an overview of qualitative research design and analysis, no. So for today, I'll walk you through the basic elements or nature of qualitative research, no? And it's also important that we differentiate qualitative research from quantitative research kasi doon tayo mas familiar, no? We are more familiar with quantitative research. So in order for us to compare, contrast, and to have a deeper understanding and appreciation of qualitative research, kailangan natin siyang i-benchmark somehow, no? Or i-compare doon sa kanyang the other side of the spectrum, no? And then I'll provide you some practical tips on how you can analyze your qualitative data. And then I'll provide also some hopefully helpful tips, no, in terms of sampling and data collection. No? Okay, so simulan na natin. Ano nga ba ang qualitative research? No? Well, qualitative research, simply defined, is a human-focused approach to research design, aiming to delve deeply into people's experiences, perceptions, behaviors, and beliefs. Kaya sobrang tama, no? Nung mga naging answers natin doon sa Mentimeter kanina, dahil gusto nating pag-aralan sa qualitative research yung mga naging karanasan, mga pagtingin, opinion, no? Maging ang mga behavior at belief ng mga iba't ibang uri ng tao, grupo o kultura, no? And qualitative research is commonly used in the social sciences, most particularly in sociology, in education, social work, information science, even anthropology, geography, history, psychology, and my field, communication studies. No, scholars from these fields study the human condition, no, and they do that by looking into a range of settings and different populations, no, to explore topics about the human. The nature of human relationship, no, between individuals, even within an organization, and with social structures. Apart from this, qualitative research is also being used in the health sciences to study people's experiences in health-related situations or context. Also in entrepreneurship, no, if researchers would like to find out consumer and entrepreneurial experiences, and just like what I said, no, in the arts and humanities, no, for us to understand or have a glimpse of people's experiences of literature, of drama, of languages, no? Actually, many studies in the arts and humanities sometimes do not involve human participants or subjects. No, ang inaaral lang nila ay yung text itself, no, like work of art or like a novel, a story, or a post, no. But just like what I mentioned earlier, that's not the focus of our discussion today, no. And surprisingly, even in the natural sciences, no, inaaral, ginagamit din ang qualitative research, no. Most especially if we want to explore people's engagement in their natural environment, kung paano nga ba nila, paano sila nakikisama, nakikibagay sa kanilang kapaligiran, no. And well, this is already a common sense, no, for people who are doing qualitative research. But I would like to emphasize this still, no. Qualitative research aims not to count experiences, no. We aim to understand them. So tama yung mga nagsagot dun sa Mentimeter natin kanina, no. And we do that by exploring the processes at play in society, by examining the meanings that individuals make of a particular event, no? And also by providing a window to understand why people do what they do and why do they think what they think, no? Kaya nga in qualitative research, we are not after collecting measurable data, no? We look for data that are more abstract and subjective compared to the observable and objective data collected and analyzed in quantitative research rather, no. So let us address now the elephant in the room. If qualitative research is not as objective as quantitative research, does it mean that qualitative research is inferior to quantitative research? Sa palagay ba ninyo ay mas rigorous at mas valuable, mas valid ang quantitative research compared sa qualitative research? Pwede nyo i-type yan sa chat box natin or sa comment section, no? And hopefully mabigyan natin siya ng answer doon sa discussion na ginagawa natin ngayon. But in order for us to answer this question, it's important to differentiate quantitative and qualitative approaches. So punta na tayo doon sa next part, no? Mamaya pa tayo pupunta sa exciting part. Doon muna tayo sa next part, no? Now, how do we differentiate the two, no? Now, in order to determine which approach is applicable to your research, it's very, very important that you clarify your philosophical assumptions as a researcher, no? Para makross niyo yung boundary between quantitative approach and qualitative approach, kailangan malinaw muna kung ano ang inyong mga philosophical assumptions, no? For instance, if you believe that the social world follows the patterns of the physical world, ibig sabihin nito ay ang reality natin ay fixed, no? And universal laws exist. And these universal laws are applicable to anyone and everyone, regardless of context. And because of that, our behaviors are predictable based on the occurrence or the absence of certain variables. If you believe that, then you must be following the positivist paradigm. If you also believe that data already exists out there for you to collect, for you to identify, no? And as a researcher, you believe that you need to maintain distance between yourself and the object being researched, then you must be following the positivist paradigm, no? Ano ba yung positivist paradigm? The positivist paradigm or a positivist social scientist aims for objectivity. Ito yung goal niya, no? And they find their place in quantitative research. So nag-a-align yung mga assumptions, philosophical assumptions ng isang positivist social scientist sa quantitative research. And here, I would like to clarify, no, kanina dun sa Mentimeter natin, we saw an answer about naturalistic inquiry. Actually, yung naturalism as a philosophical thought, no, siya ay more aligned doon sa quantitative research. Kasi ino-argue ng naturalism na yung behavior ng tao ay patterned after the physical world, the physical or the natural world. So for example, kapag tama yung sangkap ng mga variables mo, ganito yung ma-achieve mo na outcome or ganito yung tendency or likelihood na mangyayari yung ganitong klase ng consequence, no? Sinasabi ng naturalism, no, as a philosophical worldview na ganun din yung behavior natin. Ang behavior natin ay may natural pattern, no? Kagaya ng ating physical natural world, no? So to further explain, no, yung quantitative research which Sir Enzo has explained to us yesterday, no? In order to follow the philosophical assumptions behind an objective approach, we randomize samples, no, in order to make general statements about the cases. We also count the frequency distribution, no, and we also establish cause and effect relationship, no, and most particularly, we eliminate the subjective views of the researcher and the respondents. Kailangan hindi mag-factor in yung subjective views na yon dahil tinitingnan siya ng objective view or approach as biases na kailangan hindi makaapekto doon sa ating findings. No? Kailangan ma-eliminate siya. That's the objective approach, no, na nag-a-align sa quantitative research. However, on the other side, on the flip side of the debate, no, if you believe that the social world deviates from the laws of physical world, na tayong mga tao ay we don't necessarily follow the stimuli response model, na kapag hinampas mo ako, hindi ako agad-agad in a natural way magre-react sa'yo negatively. Maaring mag-factor in yung aking consciousness, yung aking reflection, yung aking reflexivity para ma-process ko yung thoughts ko para hindi ako naturally mag-respond doon sa stimuli na na-experience ko. Second, no, if you believe that data are constructed and not just collected, anong ibig sabihin nito? That you are not simply gathering or collecting data that exists out there. You are part of the construction of data in a sense that interpretation has an important and crucial role in order to come up with data for analysis. And thirdly, if you believe that researchers should embrace their subjectivities uh, in order to get a nuanced understanding of human behavior, of consciousness, and our ability to make sense of our experiences and positionalities in the social world, no? Then you must be following the interpretive paradigm, no? And the interpretive paradigm in is different, no, from the objective or positivist paradigm explained a little while ago. And an interpretive social scientist recognizes and embraces the subjective ways of knowing, no, and and they find their place in qualitative research. Anong ibig sabihin nitong subjective ways of knowing? Na there's definitely, let me clarify. For an interpretive social scientist, definitely a physical material world exists. So, totoo na tao ako, totoo na nakikita ko ang araw, totoo na may suot akong damit, totoo na may earphones ako. Totoo lahat ito kasi nahawakan ko sila, nakikita ko sila, at nabibilang ko sila, no? Pero naniniwala ang interpretive social scientist na there's more to the world, to our experience, than the physical world. So, naniniwala ang interpretive social scientist na merong multiple realities. Hindi siya multiverse. No? Hindi siya multiverse parang yung kay Dr. Strange or kay Wanda. Naniniwala siya na bawat isang individual ay merong sariling nililikha na realidad base doon sa kanyang katangian at base na rin doon sa kanyang position sa social world. So halimbawa, ang realidad ng isang mahirap ay maaaring hindi tugma sa realidad ng mga mayayaman. Ang realidad ng babae ay maaaring kakaiba doon sa realidad na na-experience ng mga kalalakihan. So on and so forth. So in other words, binibigyan ng attention ng interpretive social scientist itong gantong mga nuance na ito para mas mabigyan natin ng makulay, more vivid picture yung mundo na ating ginagalawan. Kasi sinasabi niya na kapag ang tinignan lang natin ay yung objective world na meron tayo, it lacks aesthetics. Kumbaga, hindi siya creative, no? Hindi siya artful. So kailangan nating tingnan yung creative way na paglilikha natin ng ating realidad, no? Para makita natin o mabigyan natin ng kulay yung samot-saring experiences ng individuals, sectors, identities, groups, no? And with that, no, qualitative research designs do not aspire for representation, unlike quantitative research, no? Na gusto natin ay mas marami na bahagi ng sample size mas maganda. Hindi, no? Sinasabi ng qualitative research na okay lang na walang mali doon sa pag-work natin ng smaller number of cases, no? And we are ready to sacrifice scope for details dahil ang mas binibigyan natin ng attention in qualitative research ay yung detalye, no? Hindi yung generalizability ng ating findings, no? And with that, no, positivism sits uneasily with qualitative approaches, no? Because I'm sorry. While quantitative research seeks detail in particular areas of correlation between variables, qualitative research, on the other hand, is interested in finding the precise particularities of people's understanding, our interactions, and our experiences. No? Qualitative research. So to go back, no, to go back to our question, no, does that mean that qualitative research is inferior to quantitative research? And the answer is no. No, not necessarily. No, because qualitative researchers do not aim for objectivity. On the other hand, qualitative research embraces subjectivity. They are not the same. No, so para ano siya, you are comparing apples and oranges. It would be unfair to use the metrics used to describe quantitative research in order to evaluate or describe qualitative research. For example, if we compare PowerPoint and Excel, magkaiba sila ng nature. Pareho silang software, yes. Pareho silang ginagamit na data management tools, yes. Pero magkaiba yung nature nila. At hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ang PowerPoint as a software or an application is inferior to Excel because it cannot perform computation. Kasi you are using the metrics of Excel in order to evaluate PowerPoint. And the same goes. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na yung Excel ay inferior to PowerPoint because it does not allow us to present our findings in distilled form. Kasi then you are using the metric of PowerPoint in order to evaluate Excel. Hindi ganon, no? Kailangan tingnan natin kung ano nga ba yung goal and purpose and philosophical assumptions para makita natin kung ano nga ba yung nuance or gamit ng research design na gusto nating gamitin sa ating research, no? Kaya nga, makikita natin na may magkaiba tayong paraan ng pag-evaluate ng quantitative research and qualitative research. Whereas in quantitative research, no, we focus, no, or we aim to achieve internal validity, measurement reliability, measurement validity, external validity. Iba yung sa qualitative research. So balikan lang natin very quickly, no? Ano bang ibig sabihin natin ng internal validity? Internal validity, our dependent variables, our dependent variable is an outcome of or caused by the presence of independent variables, no? So kapag na-establish natin yung connection ng independent variables and dependent variables at tama yung connection na yun, then we can safely assume that we have achieved internal validity, no? Measurement reliability, on the other hand, pertains to consistency. Ibig sabihin nun ay kaya mong i-replicate yung observation mo from one case to another, no? And measurement validity, whether or not you are indeed measuring what you intend to measure. So kung gusto mong aralin yung attitudes nila, ang inaaral mo ay attitudes, hindi belief, hindi knowledge, no? And then lastly, ay external validity, which pertains to the generalizability of your study. If you can say that what is applicable to your sample size is applicable to the population, no? Iba naman yung sa qualitative research, no? Because in qualitative research, instead of focusing on internal validity, we aim to achieve credibility, no? Anong ibig sabihin nitong credibility? We consider a qualitative research credible if the findings and the conclusions ring true for the people studied. Ibig sabihin nun, if you interviewed, let's say, laborers, if you interviewed farmers or fisher folk, no, tapos gumawa ka ng analysis tungkol sa certain experiences nila, and you present to them your findings, magkakaroon sila ng realization na, yeah, tama yung analysis mo, but I hadn't thought it that way. Na you provided a different language to our experiences, but still, we can sense our identity in that research, no, that your findings ring true to our experiences. The second one is dependability. No, instead of pursuing measurement reliability, we aim for dependability because we don't assume that our research in qualitative design is uh, replicable or can be replicated, no? And we view instabilities or inconsistencies not as errors in the design of the instrument, but we consider them as shifts in reality. In other words, probably there's a new understanding of the research participants that allow them to construct a different reality, to make sense of the world that they're living in differently from how they used to view it a few years, a few months ago, no? And for that reason, qualitative research evaluate dependability by making sure that the research process is trackable, no? And when we say it's trackable, an outsider, an external reviewer can see how the qualitative researcher went from point A to point B to point C in their interpretive process. Kumbaga, malinaw, no? At ma-walk through tayo nung qualitative researcher kung paano tayo nag-come up doon sa ating themes, categories, and conclusions, no? Thirdly, confirmability. So instead of measuring or attaining measurement validity, no, we in qualitative research aspire for um, confirmability. Measurement validity presupposes a single objective reality that is measurable. But in qualitative research, researchers judge whether the conclusions are the result of the phenomenon under study rather than looking at the biases of the researcher. So in other words, we can say that qualitative research is confirmable, has a confirmable quality kapag well-reasoned yung argument niya in terms of describing the themes, no, in the study. And then lastly, we don't aim for generalization. No? We do not aspire to conclude that our research findings for a particular group of people, kahit na representative sila ng population, ay applicable to the population, no? Mamaya i-explain ko, because in qualitative research we have an idiographic focus, no? And for that reason, we provide a detailed description of the settings or the group under study, and we do that by providing a verbose, a lengthy discussion. And we call that thick description, no? Sinasabi ng mga qualitative researchers na kapag ang inaral mo lang ay yung mga countable occurrences, frequencies, or distributions, thin yung description. Pero pag qualitative research, thick yung ating description. Marami tayong gustong sabihin. Marami tayong EBAs, in other words. At yung EBAs natin, dapat confirmable, dapat well-reasoned siya. So yung confirmability and transferability, they work together, no? We should see them as complementaries of each other. Now, bakit nga ba natin kailangan yung thick description in order for our research to be transferable, no? This is for other researchers, external reviewers, to be able to judge whether the researcher's analysis is relevant to them. In other words, halimbawa, na-find out sa isang study na ang pagtingin nila doon sa kanilang karanasan ay gendered, no? Na ito ay dulot ng kanilang pagkababae, pagkalalaki, or yung oppression nila ay dahil sila ay marginalized due to their gender identity, no? Ang inaral natin, for example, in order to make that conclusion ay grupo ng mga bakla, mga parloristang bakla halimbawa na nakatira sa Los Baños, Laguna, for example. Hindi natin sasabihin dun sa qualitative research natin na lahat ng parloristang bakla, ganon yung kanilang karanasan. Kasi hindi. Hindi, di ba? But at the same time, kapag halimbawa, kayo, nabasa niyo yung research ko, at nakita nyo na gano'n yung naging findings ko, pwede kayong mapaisip kung pwede ko bang i-apply itong ginawang research ni Sir JM dun sa ibang konteksto. Halimbawa, ang aaralin ko ay um, mga klosetang bakla, for example, na nakatira, let's say, sa Metro Manila, hindi sa Los Baños, Laguna. Malalaman lang ng researcher na yon na applicable yung findings ko doon sa ibang konteksto kung magpo-provide ako ng thick description at ng malinaw na detalye kung bakit ganon yung naging research findings ko. So that's transferability. No? Sige, bilisan ko na lang to. No? How do we achieve credibility in qualitative research? In qualitative research rather. First, kailangan natin ng prolonged engagement. We need to have a lasting presence during observation. No? We need to invest time to become familiar with the setting, the people we interview, the context, no? And most especially to build rapport and trust. No? Kaya, to tell you frankly, marami yung nadi-discourage to pursue qualitative research in their undergraduate degree kasi there is a high probability daw na madadelay sila or mag-extend sila sa pag-stay nila sa university kasi kapag hindi pa rich yung data, no? Second ay yung persistent observation. So kailangan meron kang keen eye for observation. You are able to identify the characteristics that are relevant to your problem. Kasi when you immerse yourself in a particular context, no, or when you interview different individuals or groups, malulunod talaga tayo doon sa napakaraming raw data and it's very difficult to find pattern or make sense of them. Pero kapag meron kang keen eye to observe, no, you'll be able to narrow down or reduce this data, no? And then third ay triangulation, no? We can also triangulate just like in quantitative research by using different data sources, no? So for example, you interview different individuals or you conduct a longitudinal study na you interview this individual and then you go back to that individual after some time to ask kung same pa din yung pagtingin niya sa mundo, no? And we also can achieve triangulation by inviting different investigators. So you can invite other people, no, who share the same wavelength with you, no, to code, analyze, or interpret your research, no. And finally, no, you can conduct triangulation by using different methods for data collection. And then finally, no, members check. Ano ibig sabihin nitong members check? Na you feedback your data, your analytical categories, your interpretations, your findings, your conclusion to the members of the group that you have interviewed. So kung may in-interview ka, nakapag-analyze ka ng data, ipa-confirm mo sa kanila, ipa-check mo kung nag-make sense ba or if your findings ring true to them. Now, how do we achieve dependability and confirmability in qualitative research? Pinagsama ko na lang sila, no? By, just like what I said, no? By doing an audit trail. No? An audit trail is essentially a transparent description of the research steps that you have taken from the start of the research project to the development and reporting of the findings. So it's sort of like a logbook, but we call it a memo, no? No, nilalagay talaga natin doon yung every step of the process while doing qualitative research, no? And then finally, how do we achieve transferability? Just like what I said and what I have been reiterating, no? Provide a thick description. describe not just the behavior and the experiences, but also their context, so that the behavior and the experiences become meaningful to an outsider, no? And because of this, it allows for transferability judgment to take place. Anong ibig sabihin ko doon sa transferability judgment? Your readers can assess whether or not your findings are transferable or applicable to their own setting. So ngayon, now that we have differentiated quantitative and qualitative research in terms of philosophical assumptions and evaluation, I would like now to bring your attention to the key markers or elements of qualitative research, no? So qualitative research studies meanings, no? Ano ibig sabihin nito? We view that human action is centered on meaning, not in variables that affect or predict behavior. So ang focus natin ay meaning. Hence, our goal as interpretive researchers is to understand what actions mean to people. This means that the interpretive researchers should be able to embrace the subjective world of the people they are studying. And they try to see the world through their eyes. It's like walking in their shoes or standing in their shoes, no? How do they see the world from their perspective, from their position? We also study rules, no? Anong ibig sabihin natin dito sa rules, no? In qualitative research, because of our interpretive approach, no, we view meanings and actions as inherently social. Lahat ito ay social, bahagi ng isang lipunan, bahagi ng isang kultura, and we always interact with others whenever we do anything. Even your silence is a social activity. And because everything is social, they are also guided by certain conventions or rules, no? That's the reason why in qualitative research we view rule as the commonly shared beliefs among members of a group or a subculture. And these rules define not only what counts as acceptable or appropriate, but it also informs us which behaviors are considered meaningful or intelligible. So for example, hand gestures, no? Normally in your case, no, itong gantong gestures don't really make a lot of sense, no? But if you're a UPLB student during the early 2000s or in the 90s and 80s, iba yung ibig sabihin nito. Kasi kapag UPLB student ka, pagpasok mo dun sa campus, magda-diverge yung road doon sa kanan and kaliwa na road, no? Kapag pumarang ka ng jeepney at nag-gesture ka ng ganito to your left, no, ibig sabihin nun, yung jeepney na gusto mong sakyan ay pupunta doon sa kaliwa, no? So kapag nag-gesture ka ng ganito and the driver responded ganito, ibig sabihin pwede kang sumakay. But if you gesture this way and the driver responded that way, ibig sabihin X, hindi ka pwedeng sumakay doon sa jeep na yun kasi iba yung ruta niya. And for outsiders, those who are not really part of the UPLB culture, itong gantong gesture, parang, oh my God, aliens ba sila? What are they doing? Another classic example ay yung baba-baba. No? For a foreigner, pag sinabi sa elevator yung baba-baba, bababa, parang hala, anong nangyayari? Anong klaseng code yon, no? But for us, because we follow the conventions of the Filipino language, no, we know what baba-baba and bababa mean. Now, third, no, qualitative research has an idiographic focus. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Ano ibig sabihin natin ng idiographic? Idiographic compared to nomothetic means that there are rules and meanings that are highly contextual and specific to a particular group or identity. Na what could be the patterns of behavior or meaning in a particular group might be specific to that group, no? Ayun yung sinasabi ko kanina. But observe amongst your friends, within your group of friends, no? meron kayong mga jokes, mga inside jokes na kayo lang yung nagkakaintindihan. At yung ibang mga tao, they will feel excluded if you do that, if you exchange that joke in their presence. Kasi hindi nila magigets. Kasi they're not part of that group. So, kapag qualitative research ka, ang gusto mong intindihin ay yung pagtingin sa loob, yung kultura sa loob, yung idiographic focus, idiosyncratic behaviors na meron doon sa grupo na yon, no? We aim not to generalize, but to get a comprehensive understanding of the meanings, the pattern of meanings, and the process of meaning making within that setting or group. And then lastly ay inductive process, no? Sorry, use of qualitative data, I missed that one, no? But this is already commonsensical to all, no? The data that we analyze here in qualitative research are not numerical data, non-numerical data ito. Example ay words or visual images, no? Or text. We in qualitative research view text as evocative. Tawag natin sa kanila ay evocative. Bakit sila evocative? Because the meanings that they provide, the meanings that text have, give us a rich picture of a phenomenon that readers should feel had they been in the shoes of that group. No? So halimbawa, kapag nagbabasa ka ng novel, nagbabasa ka ng, or nanonood ka ng play, nanonood ka ng movie, evocative yung mga text na yon kasi parang na-experience mo, yung na-experience ng mga tao doon sa novel, yung mga characters doon sa novel, or nung nanood ka ng Multiverse of Madness, nakaka-relate ka doon sa mga characters na parang ikaw si Wanda na sobrang naghirap sa buhay, no? Yon. Kaya nga kagaya ng sinasabi ko kanina, in quantitative research, ang data nila ay thin, no? Manipes ang kanilang data. But in Quali, we aim to provide or to give a thick description of our data. And then lastly, inductive process, no? Inductive simply means going from specific to general. And this is where the place or role of theory comes in, no? Kasi tingnan natin to, no? In the deductive research design, you begin with a theory, no? You begin with a theory, and from the theory, you come up with certain hypotheses. No? So yung hypothesis mo ay informed ng isang theory. Now, once you have already stated your hypothesis, null man sila or alternative, then you can already proceed to gathering data. Once that you have collected your data, you can now analyze your data and test the theory. Ibig sabihin, you're testing the theory through the hypothesis, no? And kapag halimbawa ni-reject nyo yung null hypothesis and you have sufficient evidence to affirm the alternative hypothesis which is aligned with your theory, then the theory is confirmed. So in a deductive research design, research is used to test or confirm a theory. But let's look at the other side, no? A different process which is inductive research design. You begin with a question. You begin with an openness, no? And with that openness, you gather data. Once you immerse yourself in that data, you start to observe patterns. And from that patterns, you draw conclusion, which can create a theory, which can generate new research questions. So as you can see in a deductive research design, the theory is not the start of the process. The theory emerges from the process of research, no? And for most qualitative research, they align more with the inductive research design, no? Most especially kapag grounded theory yung ating gagamitin. But I will not discuss that here because that's too advanced probably for the group of audience that we have here on Facebook Live, no? Okay, Now that we have discussed the key elements of qualitative data, now I will walk you through uh, the different the process, no, of doing qualitative research. But before I do that, I would like to start with a word of caution or reminder. The research questions should determine the methodology, not the other way around. Now, this is a common mistake among researchers, no, na ay ayoko mag-quanti kasi takot ako sa numbers o kaya di ako marunong mag-statistical analyze, no? So sige, magka-quali na lang ako. O kaya meron din naman dito na, ay parang exciting yung yung qualitative research. So magka-quali na lang ako. Medyo delikado tayo kapag no? Kasi fino-force natin yung methodology natin doon sa ating interest, no? Now, what should serve as our basis in determining which research approach to use? Kung mas appropriate ba yung quantitative approach or qualitative approach? The answer is your research question or research problem. What are you trying to address? What are the questions that you are trying to provide answers to? If your questions can be answered by quantitative research, then pursue a quantitative research. But if you feel that the questions you're asking can be answered by qualitative research design, then pursue a qualitative research design. For example, look at this. Now you want to determine the experience in using the new e-jeepney, no? If your question is something like this, what is your experience in using the new e-jeepney? And you have already have a predetermined codes, no, for your participants or respondents to respond to. For example, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 3 satisfactory, and 5 being excellent. So in this type of question, it's well operationalized in a sense that you have already indicated the measurements, no, the variables that would help you come up with a statistical analysis, an inferential analysis or descriptive analysis to come up with a finding or a conclusion. But and sa mga questions na ganun, the quantitative research design is more appropriate. But look at this other question. How would you describe your experience in using the e-jeepney? You cannot set a predetermined code. You cannot provide a set of predetermined codes, no, na pipiliin lang ng mga respondents mo. It's open-ended. Kaya tama din yung sagot natin sa Mentimeter, no? Pag qualitative, more open-ended questions yung ating mga sinasagot, no? Now, this is another example. Kasi ito ay yung what I provided, ito yung mga questions that we ask in the research instrument. So in the quantitative research, this is a type of question we ask in a survey research instrument. And this one, for the qualitative research, this is one question that we can ask during an interview, which is a data collection method in qualitative research. Okay. Now, what about the main research problem itself? No, what problem does your research aim to provide an answer to? No, for example, you want to study the phenomenon of getting booster shots. No? In quantitative research, you can ask this question. What are the factors affecting the intention of people with comorbidities to get a booster shot for COVID-19? So here you are already identifying. The question implies that you would like to come up with or establish a cause and effect relationship. And that's within the purview of a positivist research design, a positivist approach in a quantitative research design. But on the other hand, no, if you ask about the meanings that people with comorbidities have, no, when they ascribe, what meanings do they ascribe to booster shots for COVID-19? then you are not establishing a cause and effect relationship. You simply want to provide an in-depth understanding about their experiences or the symbolic meanings that they have, no, with regard to getting booster shots for COVID-19. No? In qualitative research, codes and categories emerge as data are being collected and analyzed. No? Kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina. And hence, analyzing qualitative data should be regarded as a careful reading exercise. Kailangan kapag qualitative research ka, mahilig kang magbasa. Mahilig kang magbasa at yung pagbabasa mo ay matalino na pagbabasa. Hindi lang yung parang magbabrowse ka lang or magsascan ka lang. Kailangan iniintindi mo bawat salita, bawat linya, bawat chunk of text, no? Kaya nga in qualitative research, we look closely at the information that we have collected. We read all these transcripts through, and then we assign sections or passages to codes and themes as we continue reading. And when you finish reading a transcript, you have to read it again and again and again. Sometimes the reading never stops, no, but it has to stop. It has to end, no, because qualitative data analysis is a cyclical process. It's iterative, no, and when you read and reread your data sources, no, it opens up possibilities to construct new meanings or patterns and see gaps that probably you might have missed in your first reading, no. Now, the analysis in data qualitative research, no, aims to surface emerging patterns and allow for meaningful conclusion, no. These are the basic steps, no, that we can keep in mind when we analyze qualitative data based on Huberman and Miles in 1994. No, the first one is to reduce data. Ibig sabihin ng data reduction ay yung pagkakaroon mo ng selective attention to the data through the choice of your conceptual framework, your research questions, and even the cases that you will include, no, or study in your research, and even the choice of instrument, no. Data display, the second step, is simply using textual representations of your data that would enable you to select segments that could best illustrate your concept of interest. And then lastly, drawing conclusions, no. Now, sige, bilisan ko na lang din itong part na to, no. The first step, according to Huberman, no, which is also emphasized by Dr. Julian Baldocobello, which was our speaker a few sessions back, no, and Ma'am Wawi Lumibaw and Sir Randy Solis, no, from the UP Communication Research Department, no. Data management through data reduction refers to the reduction of information from data sources into more manageable information, no. In other words, a qualitative researcher should be able to translate basic observation, information, and notes into more manageable descriptions, no. Because when data are more manageable, interpretation can be a lot easier. And why is that? Because more manageable information can be scanned faster and you can review them easily so that you can process this information, pieces of information, into insights and interpretations, no? Next, data display, just like what I said, this includes layouting or laying out your data into a format that is more readable and indexable. There is no rule of thumb with regard to how you lay out your transcriptions or your data, no? But when you do them, please make sure that you have enough space along the margin, no, or in between lines, so you can highlight certain text, no, or you can have notes or codes along the margin. It also involves carefully reading and rereading data transcriptions, making notes in the margin, no, and we call that research memo. We also highlight important passages or themes that could represent a particular concept. No, the objective of this step is to transform a seemingly chaotic mess of raw data into something that is more recognizable and more conceptual. And then lastly, drawing conclusions, no, wherein we make meaningful statements from the display data, about how our data illustrates our topic of interest, no. But for our session today, no, I would like to extend those three basic concepts more, basic steps even more, no, and to give you a simplified process in analyzing qualitative data. Again, I reiterate, and I cannot overemphasize this. This is a simplified version, and this is not the only way to organize or analyze qualitative data. No, I aim to present a general process of data analysis and qualitative research. No, as a matter of fact, to be honest with you, when I was doing this presentation, um, I was really having a hesitation in using the word step, no, because using the word step can be debatable in qualitative research, because data analysis in quali is really flexible. There's no set of rules, no, specific rules or guidelines on how to conduct qualitative data analysis. Our analysis in quali is a heuristic activity. Ano ibig sabihin ko ng heuristic activity? This means that it's an exploratory problem-solving technique, no? That has no specific formula or algorithms to follow, unlike in quantitative research, na parang everything is progressive. Or you begin with conceptualization, you operationalize your data, you collect your data, then you analyze your data. Sa qualitative research, hindi siya ganun ka-progressive. Ano siya? Iterative siya. Maaari magko-collect. Sige, you begin with a research question, and then you collect data. And then as you collect data, biglang mababago yung research question mo. So magko-collect ka ulit ng data, tapos mababago na naman yung research question mo, magko-collect ka na ulit ng data. So it's really a cyclical process, no? At the same time, there was a hesitation on my part because steps might be mistakenly interpreted as if it is gradual or progressive. Ibig sabihin ay structured, no, or it happens in stages. But again, I emphasize that it is not. No, there is no single established way of analyzing qualitative data. But for budding researchers, no, maaaring makatulong sa inyo itong step-by-step process na ito para sa pag-make sense nyo ng data. No, and it begins with setting up or determining your initial codes or some sensitizing concepts. You read the transcript, you start labeling relevant pieces of the transcript, then you create categories, then you consolidate those categories to create themes, then you evaluate and revise, and then you write your narrative. Sige, discuss natin sila isa-isa, no? Anong oras na ba? 10. May oras pa naman ako kahit kaunti pa. No? Okay. But here I would like to define first, no, a code is a researcher-generated construct that symbolizes and thus attributes interpreted meaning to each individual datum for later purposes of pattern detection, categorization, theory building, and other analytic processes. This is lifted directly from Johnny Saldaña's work, no, which I will introduce later. So in other words, coding or codes, no, in qualitative research are simply tags or labels that we assign to excerpts of text, words, no, or even documents, no. This can be applied or attached to text of varying sizes, words, phrases, sentences, even whole paragraphs, no. And with that, we can then define qualitative coding as a process of taking unstructured data and systematically categorizing these excerpts in order for us to find themes and patterns for analysis. No? Now, as a first step, your initial code may come from your research questions or from an existing framework, no, conceptual or theoretical framework. For example, in let's first provide an example for uh, coming up with initial codes from your research problems or research questions. For example, in your research, you'd like to find out, or you are asking, what motivates senior high school students to access educational materials on history. So it's already telling you that what you need to scout for or to browse through in your transcripts are passages, texts that would lead you to getting an idea of the motivation of senior high school students to access educational materials that tell them about their history. So hanapin nyo kung ano yung mga magsisignify, magsasabi na ito yung mga motivations nila. Or if you would like to ask what prevents them from accessing educational materials on history, then ang hahanapin mo yung hindrance. No? In other words, itong initial codes, ito yung entry point mo para ma-reduce mo yung data at magkaroon ka ng clear direction kung paano mo sisimulang i-weave together yung mga salasalabat na mga data around you. Another example, no? Kapag gusto naman natin na yung initial codes natin or sensitizing concepts natin ay manggagaling sa isang theoretical framework. So for example, this is a communication theory, no? Which I discuss in class every semester, no? For example, yung theory ni Kenneth Burke about identification. It's usually acknowledged as a rhetorical theory, no? Ano bang sinasabi ni Kenneth Burke? Sinasabi niya na isang tao daw ay nakaka-experience ng isang pollution purification cycle or tinatawag din niyang guilt redemption cycle. So, ano yung mga concepts dun sa theory na to ni Kenneth Burke? No? Una ay yung guilt. So, nakakaranas daw tayo ng any sense of tension or anxiety or an easy feeling, no? And it may come from various sources, no? And it's natural for us whenever we experience guilt to purify ourselves of that guilt, to relieve ourselves of guilt, no? And we usually do that through victimage or mortification, which I will not explain any further, no? And once we have purified ourselves from that guilt, then we'll achieve redemption. Kakaroon tayo ng redemption. So, when you analyze your script, pwede mo na agad tingnan, no? Ano yung mga nagsisignify ng guilt dito doon sa mga sinabi sa'yo ng mga interviewees or research participants mo. Na kapag nakita mo na kung ano yung mga guilt na yon, paano nila pinurify yung sarili nila from that guilt? Paano nila pinurge yung sarili nila from that guilt? At paano nila na-achieve yung redemption? No? A classic example of this is a research by Kara Schultz. No? She wanted to find out or she wanted to explore the debate between cochlear implant. No? Ano yung cochlear implant? Ito yung device na ini-implant natin sa mga people with hearing disabilities, no? That would allow them to hear sounds despite their condition, no? Now, may two sides of the debate dito, no? The first side comes from the advocate, no? They believe that children should be able to function in a hearing world, so they advocate for cochlear implant. On the other side of the debate naman, they are against it, no? They think that deafness is not a disability, no? And there is a thing as a unique deaf culture. So parang sinasabi nila na unfair na tingnan natin yung mundo from an ableist perspective, no? So ano yung nakita dito ni Kara Schultz, no? Nakita niya na yung guilt ng mga bata with hearing disabilities ay exactly yung kanilang disability. They feel guilt because they're not able to hear. no? And how did they purify, no, themselves out of that guilt? On one side of the debate, no, those who advocate for it, no, advocate for the cochlear implant, they work hard like a normal person, no, in order to achieve their redemption, which is to live a normal life. But on the other side of the debate, no, people who are against cochlear implant, they purify their guilt of not being able to hear by um, finding relief in an alternative community of fellow hearing impaired individuals, no, in order for them to get their redemption of embracing their identity because of the community where they find belongingness. So kung gagamitin natin yon, may clue ka na kung ang in-interview mo, for example, ay hindi mga children with hearing disabilities. This time around, people now coming from other identities, other sectors. At yung mga concepts na to, yung magpo-provide sa inyo ng entry point kung ano yung mga dapat or pwede mong hanapin doon sa data source mo. Okay, so when you start with your initial codes, no, you have to embrace the fact that these are just initial codes. They are not permanent and they will change as you immerse yourself into the data. And that's the beauty of qualitative data analysis, na you allow flexibility, no? And what you have initially thought of, your first impressions, will definitely not be the last impressions that you will have of your data. Second step, no? The second step is to read the transcript. So, ano na to, madali na siyang intindihin, no? Para sa atin. So, browse the transcript. Browse nyo sila. Ako, ayun yung strategy ko, and this is my tip for you. Basahin nyo muna sila, i-browse nyo muna sila, kahit na hindi nyo pa sila masyadong naiintindihan. No? And then after you browse each of them, you begin writing your initial impressions about the transcript or your data. And then after you have made your first impressions, then you read the transcripts more thoroughly, again and again, one by one. No? And as you read the transcript, you start labeling relevant parts. No? Dito na papasok yung coding talaga. No? And here, you need to decide which part or area of your transcript must you code. No? And here, Richards and Morse provided us a humorous answer to the question, what gets coded? Sabi nila, if it moves, code it. No? But frankly, no, or on a more serious note, no, you can code words, phrases, sentences, or sections that you find relevant to your initial codes. So kung halimbawa, naset mo na code kanina ay motivation, initial code mo. So hanapin mo yung mga words, phrases, sentences na nagdadirect sa'yo doon sa initial code mo. No? Look for activities, identities, concepts, differences, opinions, processes, sentiments, and even descriptions, no, doon sa transcript mo. Now, what counts as relevant? Probably you might ask. Well, of course, the obvious answer is that what is relevant will be determined by your research questions. What questions are you asking, no? But you may also use these following enumerations as guide, no? First, ano ba yung mga words, phrases na nauulit-ulit several times, no? Or ano yung mga words, phrases, statements na may element of surprise that you find surprising or interesting or something that is totally unexpected, no? Kailangan dito ng matinding intuition. Kailangan may intuition ka as a qualitative researcher to spot for words that can be coded. No? Third, kapag sinabi ng interviewee mo, if your interview explicitly stated that something is important, then code it. No? Or if you have read something similar in a previous study, or it reminds you of a theory or a concept, code it as well. No. Now, assign codes. No. Assign a word or a phrase that symbolically assigns a summative, salient, essence-capturing, and/or evocative attribute for a portion of language-based or visual data. So, yung mga ipoprovide ko sa inyo na slides ay hango directly lifted from the first edition of Saldaña's book, The Coding Manual for Qualitative Researchers. This is available online. No, you can access the copy just by going to your browser. No, but there are more updated versions of this book. No, so if your library has access to these more updated versions, then all the better. No. So for example, this one, no? This is a chunk of text, no, from a transcript, and this is directly lifted from Saldaña's book. No? I noticed that the grand majority of homes have chain link fences in front of them. There are many dogs, mostly German shepherds, with signs on fences that say, "Beware of the dog." Now, how do we code this? No? There are different ways of coding it. No? For example, Saldaña coded this with security. No? Sinummarize niya itong buong chunk ng text na to by using as a word that would capture the essence or the summary of this chunk of text. Security is a code, no? Security is a code, no? Kung makikita natin yung buong chunk ng text yung binigyan niya ng code. Ang tawag dito sa researcher na nagsusummarize ng isang malaking chunk ng text at nag-a-assign ng isang code doon sa big chunk of text na yun ay lumper. Lumper. But look at this. No? Look at this. No? This one is different because in this example, each sentence has been assigned to a code. No? First sentence, he cares about me. He has never told me, but he does. Ang code dito ni Saldaña ay sense of self-worth. No? Dinidescribe niya itong sentence na to as signifying the sense of self-worth by the participant. The second sentence also has a different code. He's always been there for me, even when my parents were not. Is one of the few things that I hold as constant in my life. So it's nice. Kinode niya dito ay stability. And then lastly, I really feel comfortable around him. Comfortable is another code. No? Kung makikita nyo, may difference yung first example and this one. Yung first example, a huge chunk of text was coded. And we call that the strategy used by a lumper. Ito naman, ang tawag natin dito ay splitter. No, splitter. Kasi ini-split niya literally yung isang chunk of text to code them. Now, probably you're asking, alin yung mas tama? Wala. Pareho silang tama. Pareho silang tama. It reflects the strategy of the coder, kung ano yung interpretation niya doon sa chunk of text na ina-analyze niya. So pareho silang tama. Again, in qualitative research, we emphasize that there are multiple interpretations, multiple realities, no? And this coding, itong pagko-code na to ni Saldaña might be different from how you will code it as a qualitative researcher. Walang tama, walang mali doon, no? But kailangan yung makapag-provide ng sufficient evidence to prove or to convince your readers that your code is true or your code is appropriate. Okay, now, I would like to emphasize now that coding is not just a gesture of labeling. It is linking. No, it leads you from the data to the idea, and from the idea to all the data pertaining to that idea, according to Richards and Moose. No, and because of this, just like what I have been reiterating, coding is a cyclical act. No, hindi pwede na isang beses mo lang babasahin yung transcript mo, no? Kaya nga as a common practice, ina-identify natin yung coding as constitutive of two different cycles, no? The first cycle and the second cycle, no? And here I am using Saldana as a reference. Ito yung mga different coding methods na pwede nating gamitin doon sa first cycle coding natin, no? Attribute coding, holistic coding, descriptive coding, in vivo coding. Okay. Let me clarify. Napakarami pong coding methods and I cannot explain them to you, every single one of them, given the limited time that we have. So I invite everyone to look for a copy of Saldana's coding manual and study kung ano yung mga coding methods na to and look which coding methods are appropriate to you, no? I myself, I'm still learning all these coding methods kasi medyo marami po talaga sila, no? Okay, sorry. I-try lang natin na mag-provide ng example sa bawat coding methods na to for the first cycle coding. The first one is called attribute coding. So ano ba yung attribute coding? Essentially, dinidescribe mo lang kung sino yung participant mo, sino yung in-interview mo, ano yung context ng saan yung location or setting ng pag-i-interview nyo. So attribute codes are notations that you place usually at the beginning of a data set, no? Instead of embedding the codes within your text, no? And here you provide descriptive information such as the fieldwork setting, the characteristics of your participants, no? Even the data format, the time frame, and other important considerations or variables of interest, no? That would be helpful for you in analyzing your data. So for example, here, name of the participant, always use a pseudonym. Remember our session with Dr. Pamela Custodio on the ethics of research, no? And then age niya, ano yung occupation niya, so on and so forth. You can also include the time or the date when the interview was conducted, and at the same time, yung location ng interview, no? That's attribute coding. Holistic coding, on the other hand, is like is a favorite coding strategy of a lumper because when you perform holistic coding, you intend to grasp basic themes or issues in the data by absorbing them as a whole, not as parts, no, that compose the whole. You would rather analyze the entirety of the text rather than analyzing them line by line, no? This is applicable when the researcher already has a general idea of what to investigate, no? Example, yung paghahanap natin, yung paggamit natin ng initial codes or sensitizing concepts, no? Ito yung example ni Saldana, no? Tinag niya yung buong chunk ng text na to dito sa in vivo code na to na a lot to learn. Ginamit niya yung exact term na ginamit ng participant, no? That's holistic coding. Descriptive coding, on the other hand, summarizes more medium chunk of text compared to holistic coding, no? Descriptive coding, ito yung pinaka-basic, pinaka-ginagamit, no? Summarizes in a word or a short phrase. Pero noun, yung ginagamit natin, noun, yung usually ginagamit natin na code, to summarize or to identify the basic topic of a passage of qualitative data. Okay, I would like to clarify. Descriptive codes are identifications of the topic, not the summary of the content. So dito natin ma-distinguish yung holistic coding sa descriptive coding. Holistic coding summarizes a chunk of text. Descriptive coding, on the other hand, identifies the topics. What is being talked about in a particular line or chunk of text, no? What was written about, no? Instead of focusing on the content, which is the substance of the message. For example, dito, I asked on Turquoise Road, I parked on Turquoise Road and walked along the periphery of an elementary school lot. The majority of the homes had dirt front yards. The only vegetation growing were weeds. So maybe one house per block had what would be called a lawn. The majority seemed unattended, not cared for. The homes look like they were built in the 1930s, 1940s at the latest. So yung buong paragraph na yon, buong chunk ng text na yon, ang topic niya ay yung houses. Yung nag-uusapan doon yung houses. So ang code natin for descriptive coding ay houses. Another example, I noticed that the grand majority of homes have chain link fences in front of them. There are many dogs, mostly German shepherds, with signs on fences that say, beware of the dog. Ito yung pinrovide ko ng example a little while ago. And dito, ang pinag-uusapan ay security. No? Ang topic ay security. And then lastly ay yung in vivo coding, which is also a very popular coding strategy. No? In vivo coding literally means in that which is alive. No, in that which is alive. And this is a code that refers to a word or short phrase from the actual language found in the qualitative data. So in other words, we are directly quoting them by plucking words or phrases that came directly from the horse's mouth. For example, I hated school last year. So we lift direct quotes from the participants, from the transcript, no? Because we assume that this is the way that they put meaning to their observations or experiences. So with that, we label it hated school. Freshman year, it was awful and I hated it. So freshman year, awful. No? As simple as that. So kukuha ka lang ng mga salita na nanggaling doon sa mismong sinabi ng ating mga participants. No? This is another example. Yun. So usually kapag in vivo code, we place them in inside quotation marks to signify that they are direct quotes. Okay. Now, once you have done your first cycle, no, then you can proceed to the second cycle coding methods. And for Saldana, ito yung common or ito yung basic, no? Eclectic coding and pattern coding. Ano ibig sabihin natin ng eclectic coding? Eclectic, from the name itself, we use a repertoire of methods simultaneously. So this is an example, again, directly lifted from Saldana. So meron kang attribute coding here sa taas. At the same time, meron kang holistic coding to describe a chunk of text. At di ka pa doon natatapos, meron ka pang line by line na coding, descriptive code, emotion code, or affective code, and then in vivo code. So yung isang text, pwede mo nang pagsama-samahin yung iba't ibang mga coding methods para ma-make sense mo siya. So hindi na lang siya exclusive to one coding strategy per se. And then second or finally, no, process coding. Ang difference itong process coding doon sa descriptive coding, gumagamit tayo ng gerunds, action words, instead of noun, no, to connote action in the data, no. For example, well, that's one problem that my school is pretty small. So what is the participant doing while uttering this particular text, no? The participant was problemizing school size, no? So if you say one thing to one person, saying one thing, so lahat ito ay mga gerunds, no? May ing. Dahil ino-argue nito as a philosophical thought, no? We view action as a process, no? And it being an action or a process, it's motivated. It can be strategic, no? And it's not just a random thing. So yun yung mga basic coding strategies na pwede nating gamitin, no? Kapag nagko-code tayo. Again, marami pa po dito and I cannot explain them all to you during this session. Okay. Now, next step, no? We need to create categories na once we have finished coding. Pero marirealize nyo na hindi talaga siya magkaibang step or procedure. Kasi as you code, mas nagkakaroon ka ng clarity doon sa mga categories na nabubuo. So pwedeng simultaneous mong ginagawa yung coding and categorization, no? Ano ba yung categories or how do we proceed with this step, no? Whenever we create categories, we organize and group similarly coded data into categories or families because they share some characteristics, no? Here we are already surfacing a pattern. Ano yung nag-emerge na pattern? So to clarify, to differentiate, no, ang code look at code as this is based on Sharma's, no? As a metaphor to compare, no? Codes are the bones of your analysis. And when you assemble those bones, you will form a skeleton, a working skeleton. And your working skeleton is your category. Okay? So let me provide you an example. For example, nag-interview kayo, interview teachers to ask them about their challenges in remote learning. And ito yung mga na-generate mo or mga nakuha mong codes, no? Walang data, in vivo codes, low internet speed, broken laptop, mostly ay mga descriptive codes, no? Or holistic codes, no? Sala-salabat sila at maaring wala pa silang sense. The goal is for you to find the relationship between or among these codes. So halimbawa, nakita mo na may mga magkakaulam, may mga magkakapamilya, no? Halimbawa, itong mga naka-pink at itong mga naka-green, no? So pwede mo na silang pagsamasamahin. Clustering yung tawag natin. At kapag cluster mo sila, pwede mo nang ma-surface kung ano yung mga categories nila. A more general category, no? For example, for the codes in pink, you can group them or categorize them as tech-related issues that teachers experience, no, in remote learning. Whereas those in green might pertain to the issues that teachers experience in establishing communication with their students, no? So yung tech-related issues and issues in establishing communication, these are the categories that you have formulated based on your codes. So it's really a matter of organizing, putting together your codes. No? And then, this is the more difficult part. No? And ito ay really applicable doon sa mga experienced qualitative researchers. No? Once you have generated the categories, now you need to find the possible connections between those categories. Look for patterns and try to scout to dig deeper and find the context behind your observations. So balik tayo dito sa mga categories natin and codes, no? I-review natin ulit sila. Pag-aralan ulit natin sila. At i-try nating hanapin yung konteksto nung pagka-categorize natin nitong mga codes na to. And let's try to find the pattern, no? Ano ba yung mga patterns that can be observed? For example, are these issues gendered? For example, more likely ba yung mga lalaki yung ang main problem nila ay tech-related issues? Or more likely ba mga babae yung nakaka-experience ng issues with regard to establishing communication, no? Are these issues brought about by socioeconomic context? Go back to your attribute coding, no? Ano yung characteristics ng mga teachers na ang sinusurface nilang paulit-ulit na problem ay tech-related issues? Do they live in far-flung areas? Do they come from the lower middle class, no? And what about those whose problems are problems in communication? Sila ba ay mga mayayaman? Are they coming from an urban area? No? Or are these issues based on the nature of the subject being taught? Yung mga nakaka-experience, yung mga pinoproblema nila paulit-ulit ay tech issues, sila ba ay mga nagtuturo ng production course? For example, journalism, for example, ay media, no? Tapos yung mga naka-experience ng problems in communication, sila ba ay mga teachers ng grade school? Sila ba ay teachers ng high school? Kasi mas attuned sila doon sa pagde-develop ng values ng kabataan, ng mga toddlers, ng mga bata. No? Ito yung mga questions na kailangan nating paulit-ulit itanong para makita natin yung pattern. No? At the same time, try to find out what the categories reveal or say about the phenomenon. Sinasabi ba nung data mo or ng categories mo that remote learning has an impact on student teacher-student communication or relationship. Kasi come to think of it, the tech-related issues are also issues in communication in general. Whereas yung parang establishing communication, it's more of a relational issue. So, i-argue ba natin na yung communication ay important aspect ng learning na naapektuhan in remote learning setup? No? These are questions, no? Because the answers will depend on how you interpret your data. I cannot provide you the answer because you alone can do that, no? This is an example by Saldana, no? So si Saldana observed and interviewed grade school children, no, to determine the ways they hurt and oppress each other, no. Na-realize niya na yung first cycle coding niyan, nakita niya na yung categories ay physical oppression and verbal oppression. At yung mga codes doon ay ito, pushing, fighting, scratching for physical oppression. At yung verbal oppression ay name-calling, threatening, laughing at. But then upon further reading of the transcript, na-realize niya na, oh my, merong mga instances na may combination itong physical oppression and verbal oppression. Na for example, when they are playing together, tinutulak ng ibang mga bata yung ibang mga bata, and at the same time, sinasabihan ng mga oppressors, ng mga bully ng mga bata, yung kapwa nila you can't play with us. So, simultaneously nangyayari yung two different actions na yon, no? Kaya dinagdag niya yung physical and verbal oppression. This goes to show that your codes or categories can change as you read and reread through your transcripts, no? But he also realized that the oppression was not simply about the body, the physical gesture of oppression, nor is it just about the voice or the verbal act of oppression. It was really about the force, the magnitude, and the feelings involved in the act of oppression, no? At nakita niya na yung force is a pattern among male children. At yung feelings ay pattern among female children. So, ito yung kanyang revised categories, no? Oppression through physical force. Hindi na lang siya physical act, but the force, no? At primarily, but not exclusively, ito ay performed ng mga kalalakihan, no? At yung second category niya ay oppression through hurting others, feelings, no? And it's primarily enacted by girls, but not exclusively. Ano yung theme? What was the theme? The theme for Saldana is this. Ito yung the way he made sense of the categories. That peer oppression is gendered. That when people abuse each other, they abuse based on gender. And also the act itself of oppression is a gendered issue, no? So nakikita nyo, we start from something specific, from something that is observable from our data, and then we proceed to making it more abstract until we arrive at a theme, no? And our theme essentially is our analysis already, no? Now, the next step is to evaluate and revise codes, categories, and or themes as what has been exemplified, no? Make sure that your themes have sufficient basis na hindi ito hinugot sa tadyang ng kung sino man. Na ito ay may sapat na basihan, no? Those that have no basis can be removed or reconsidered. And decide if similar themes can also be merged together. And then finally, write your narrative. No? Describe the categories and themes, and then dialogue your results with other studies and or concepts or theories from your field, and then tell a cohesive story of your data. But I would like to tell everyone that writing is really an integral aspect, no, in qualitative data analysis. Hindi lang siya nangyayari sa dulo. Kasi di ba in quantitative research, you collect data muna, you analyze your data through statistical tests, no? And then you write the analysis, no? Progressive siya. But in qualitative analysis or in qualitative research design, hindi. At the very beginning, you are already writing. Kasi you write letters, you write research notes, you write analytical memos, you write a diary. When you code, you write, no? And when you perform a diagrammatic representation of how the codes are related to each other, then you are also writing, no? And then to emphasize again what has been discussed earlier, no, it's important na may thick description tayo. No? We do not just describe the categories or themes, but we provide really nuanced writing as to what kind of context is being surfaced or is being manifested in the background of your research. No? Kailangan thick description siya. And that would allow us to persuade others to accept our interpretation because our interpretation may not be aligned with the interpretations of others. Our interpretation can be unique, no? But in order for our interpretation to be transferable, dinidiscuss ko kanina, kailangan ay ma-persuade natin yung readers natin na nag-make sense, na logical and well-reasoned yung ating pag-provide ng conclusion. At malaking tulong yung pagda-dialogue natin with existing literature, with other previous studies, and with also various theoretical frameworks, no, na we find relevant to our study. Now, bibilisan ko na lamang po ito because this is just a review probably, no, data sampling. Inuna ko talaga yung data analysis para mas may time tayo to discuss that, no. Samples in qualitative research are purposive, no. This means that we should have a clear rationale and specific purpose related to the research question, no. Kailangan alam natin kung ano ba yung gusto nating tanungin at ano yung gusto nating makita, no. The who and how many of our participants will largely depend on what you want to know, the purpose of your inquiry, what is at stake, what will be useful, and what will have credibility. So there is really no specific number with regard to the number of participants or subjects that you can invite in your to be part of your study, no, or to be interviewed for your study. Unlike in quantitative data methodology or research design, no, pwede kayo mag-compute, nag-calculate ng sample size. Dito ay hindi. No? It will really depend on your intelligent decision as a qualitative researcher. Now, how do you choose participants in your study? No, you may select participants based on the following selection principles. Provide small numbers so you can study them intensively. Participants are chosen purposefully. Selection is conceptually driven by the theoretical framework. And it is commonly sequential rather than predetermined. Ano ibig sabihin natin ng sequential? Na you begin, for example, with 4 individuals. No? And as you immerse yourself in the data, you realize that teka lang, I need to confirm, I need to triangulate, I need to look for other data that would support my initial findings. So you add 2 more individuals to your initial 4, no? And when you realize na kulang pa din, then you add 2 more individuals to add to your original sample size, no? And now I'll proceed to data collection, no, and provide some tips for everyone how to collect your data because it's already it's almost 11 o'clock, no. Common data collection methods in qualitative research are interviews, group interviews, contextual data gathering, no, participant observation can also be included. No? When you do interviews, you can do it structured or semi-structured or totally unstructured. Pag sinabi natin structured ay meron kang interview schedule or meron kang interview questions. Pag semi-structured ay meron kang mga themes doon sa interview questionnaire mo, but you also allow for follow-ups that might not necessarily be included in your original instrument. Unstructured talaga ay yung totally wala ka talagang structure ng questions or sequence ng questions na gustong itanong. So anything goes as long as related yon doon sa topic na dinidiscuss mo with your participant, no? The group interviews, no, pwede siyang group interview na you are interviewing different people or different or a group of individuals all at the same time. You ask them similar question and then you take note of their answers. That's group interview. Pero pwede rin naman siyang focused group interview. Pag focused group interview, ang focus natin doon ay yung interaction ng mga participants. So, less on the message or on the content of what they say, but on how these individuals interact with each other, the dynamics of that particular group. No? Yan, contextual and contextual data gathering. Okay, now some rules of thumb for asking questions during the interview, most especially sa mga senior high school students who are tuning in right now. I advise you to start with a general question to orientate interviews to the topic, no? Para magkaroon ng direksyon yung interview doon sa topic. Gauge the level at which you can express yourself and the type of language that you must use, no? Okay lang naman na mag-share ka about yourself just to dispel any tension or to establish rapport, pero don't share too much about yourself, no? Kasi baka mapunta sa iyo yung usapan hindi na tungkol sa kanila. And also be conscious of the language that you're using. Language in a sense na siya ba ay nagtatagalog, siya ba ay nagfi-Filipino, siya ba ay Bisaya, siya ba ay nakakaintindi ng English, no? And even some of the words that you use, be sensitive and be politically correct, no? Careful doon sa mga words na ginagamit natin. And then as much as possible, try to be conversational. Another set of tips, no? Put more sensitive questions towards the end, no? So try to establish rapport first during the early part of the interview, and then you ask the more sensitive questions towards the ends once you have already made sure that the participant already feels secured and comfortable disclosing any personal information to you, no? Ask open-ended questions, ask neutral questions, don't ask close-ended questions para may room sa kanila to discuss further, no? And then use concrete rather than abstract questions, no? Questions that appeal to their actual experience. So instead of asking them, ano ang pagtingin mo doon sa nangyaring pandemya? Instead of asking question, a very general question that like that, itanong mo sa kanila, kamusta ka? Paano ka nag-cope nung panahon ng pandemya? So ibabalik mo doon sa actual experience nila or dadirect mo doon, no? Now, of course, when you do the interview, you need to record the interview. This is very, very important. Record the interview. You may use recording devices with built-in USB, no? But you may also use your phone. Just make sure that your phone can handle the amount of data, no, to store the recording. Kasi you won't know, no, kung gaano katagal maglalast yung interview, no? Test the recording device before starting the data collection. Please make sure that it's functional. You're able to capture sounds with clarity, and also the format that it will generate is compatible with your hardware, with your computer. And you're also recommended to bring extra batteries and other manual recording device, no, like pen and paper during the interview. I think this is already my last slide, no? When you do your interview, it's important that you show signs of your presence, show signs that you are listening well, intently to their sharing. No? So take down notes, but don't copy it verbatim. No, just take down what you think is important or things that you can go back to. No, and also make sure that the interview is done in a quiet location as much as possible. Once the recording is done, check the quality of the recording, and then pause the recording for off-the-record discussions. For example, you feel that the participant is already feeling discomfort, no, and doesn't want to disclose any more information with you, with the fear that it might be held against her or him, no. Then you may pause the recording and then tell her na you may share whatever you want to share. I won't record it, so this is off the record. And then before you start the recording, please make sure to seek the consent of your participant first. Ask if it's okay to proceed with the recording and also to save the recording. So those are the tips that I have for everyone, no? With regard to qualitative research design and data analysis, no? Hopefully ay meron tayong mga natutunan or may mga na-clarify tayo about qualitative data analysis, and we don't find it daunting anymore. Now, we look at it as a very exciting thing to explore on. These are the references that I use. The ideas are not mine, no, most of them are not mine, no, and I consulted here some of the important figures in qualitative research to present my sharing today. So that would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir JM. So, grabe sir, almost 600 participants, hindi po sila bumitaw sa ating session ngayong umagang ito. Sige sir, habang umiinom po kayo ng tubig, ay babatiin ko po ang ating mga kasamahan sa Zoom tuloy, sa Facebook Live. Sir, actually looking at the demographics of our participants, we have participants from Luzon hanggang Mindanao, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, na talagang ano po, no, they were very eager to learn more about qualitative research. So, dito, ako personally, sir, ako po kasi, aminado po ako, mas leaning ako sa sa quantitative research. Yung undergrad ko po is quantitative eh. Pero after our session ngayon, parang mas wow, yun pala yung, ganun pala kalaki yung or kalayo pang pwedeng marating ng isang qualitative research, kasi it really involves you as the researcher. As I mentioned nga po kanina, Sir JM, sa ating introduction dito, kasi sa qualitative research, ikaw yung research tool na mahalaga sa iyong study, kasi most of the interpretations or the meaning making, the coding, making sense of your data, making sense of the theory would come from you as your as the researcher, as the author of your study. And correct me if I'm wrong, sir, is that the reason ba daw po kung bakit relatively mas manipis ang related literature ng mga qualitative studies as compared to quanti? Is that true ba, sir?
Sige, address ko yung first na comment ni Josh, no? That's correct na ang sarili natin, yung main research instrument natin in qualitative research, more often than not, no? Although gumagamit pa rin tayo ng mga data collection tools, for example, interview questionnaire, no? Or analytical notes, no? Or research notes, no? Ang magiging ang magsasabi talaga kung ano yung maging research findings natin ay yung sarili nating interpretation, how we made sense of our data. But it doesn't allow us doesn't give us the clearance to just make any interpretation out of nowhere. Kagaya nung sinasabi ko kanina, no, kailangan confirmable siya, kailangan dependable siya, kailangan credible siya, at kailangan transferable siya. So kailangan ay yung ibang tao can also attest that your interpretation makes sense. And most especially, yung mga research participants mo can also confirm na yung mga naging analysis mo ay makatotohanan, no, na hindi siya hinugot sa kung saan man. Now, going back to the other question na kung ang RRL daw ay normally maninipis, it really depends, no, on the scope of your research. Kasi kung halimbawa, medyo malawak yung gusto mong puntahan na research, yung research problems that you would like to address ay medyo malaki in scope, then it would entail that you make use of various frameworks, no, in order to find clarity in your research. At makakatulong doon yung mga previous literature and even some theories, no, na pwede nating i-cite doon sa RRL. Pero ang talagang nagpapakapal, you're correct, Josh, doon sa qualitative research write-up ay yung results and discussions. Kasi doon magmamatter yung thick description. Doon lalabas yung thick description ng ating qualitative research.
Thank you for that, sir. No? Kasi yun yung mga isa sa mga personal observations ko when I read qualitative research studies or mga thesis. Ako yung mga colleagues ko dito, yung mga kabatch ko, relatively mas makakapal po, sir, no? Yung mga thesis nila. I've even encountered nga po, if I recall po, si Sir EJ po, si Sir, our instructor from College of Dev, Sir EJ Pino, his study was qualitative, and I think the thickness of his thesis was ang kapal, and I really like his study po. I just forgot the title. Pero parang ganun, sir, yung ano, yung somehow nakitang trend kasi mas kailangan mong lawakan yung explanations mo dun sa naging findings mo sa study mo. So, ayun. Thank you, sir. Eto,
Oo,
sir,
so
meron na...
kailangan
Sige,
maganda
sir.
yung magaling ka magsulat. I mean, um, articulate ka in terms of, explaining or describing the codes, the categories, and surfacing the context behind it, and giving a picture of the lives lived by your participants. No? Maganda na ma-narrate natin sila doon sa write-up. So, very important na meron tayong writing skills, good writing skills when we do qualitative research.
I agree, sir. No, to, dyan papasok yung clear and effective writing at pagkakaroon ng napakalawak na vocabulary. Ito po, sir, we have our first question from Ray Garalde po. His question is, in the entertainment industry, like creating the next star, is qualitative research used in that sense po, sir? In entertainment industry, parang searching for the next star, the next idol, parang ganun, sir.
Baka mukhang ito yung gustong i-explore na topic nung nagtanong, no? Kapag magpo-propose na siya ng kanyang proposal for his or her thesis. So definitely applicable ang qualitative research anywhere, no? Pwede natin siyang magamit sa popular culture, sa pop culture, pop art, no? When we analyze movies, when we analyze news, no? Or when we think of exploring the entertainment industry as an organization or as a profit-oriented institution, pwede natin siyang magamit, no? Pwede rin nating tingnan kung ano yung mga qualities na tinitingnan ng mga tao para magkaroon ng minamahal na mga bias or idols, the fandom, no? Maraming mga research ngayon yung nag-aaral ng Hallyu wave, ng ng interest natin doon sa mga sikat na mga pop stars ngayon at kung bakit nga ba tayo sobrang enamored doon sa ganung klase ng mga pop idols. For example, ikaw, Josh, no? You are a fan of BTS. Same with Mamawen, who's probably watching us right now. Hello, Mamawen. No? Pwede nating aralin kung ano yung experiences or ano yung symbolic meanings na na-ascribe ng mga tao na yon doon sa ginagawa nilang activity with regard to the fandom, no? So to answer the question, yes, definitely, no. Pwede nating gamitin yung qualitative research sa pag-aaral natin in terms of popular culture, mass media, and even what we consider as entertaining.
Thank you, Sir JM. So, proceeding with the next question. Ito po, so I think gusto na po mag-clarify ni participant. Pwede po pa-reiterate or pa-explain po ulit yung contextual data gathering. Yung paano ba po siya properly gagawin ng mga researchers? Contextual data gathering, sir.
Yung context, makikita mo siya kapag nag-immerse ka na dun sa data. So normally, although this is very applicable in phenomenological analysis, interpretive phenomenological analysis, na we clear ourselves of any bias when we enter a phenomenon to study it. So lahat ng mga context na sa tingin natin ay nag-a-apply doon sa phenomenon, isi-strip muna natin sila and we allow the data to reveal themselves to us. So as we analyze, as we code, as we categorize, as we look for themes, as we determine patterns or look for patterns, unti-unti na nag-e-emerge yung context. Unti-unti na nag-e-emerge kung bakit ganito yung naging sagot, yung description ng mga participants natin. And you allow the interpretation to happen within the bounds of your data. No? Meron nga tayong sinasabi sa qualitative research, no, na you can't get out of the text. There is nothing outside of the text. So ibig sabihin, yung context, doon siya manggagaling sa mismong data na inanalyze mo. Bibigyan mo siya ng fresh perspective, no? Maaari kang humiram ng mga teorya from outside, no? Or coming from an ethic perspective, no? Pero mas gusto nating palutangin kung ano nga ba yung sinasabi ng mga datos natin. Ano yung konteksto? Ano yung background kung saan nagtatranspire yung mga codes at categories na yun.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very enlightening po regarding yung contextual data gathering. Si Ray, sir, is meron po siyang pahabol na question po. Yung sa pag-ano naman daw po, sir, pag-market ng new products ng mga companies or ito pinag is qualitative research used to conceptualize new products in the market to create new experiences? Is that qualitative research ba daw, sir?
Definitely, definitely. Actually, no, malaki yung gamit ng qualitative research sa market research. For example, if you want to introduce a new product, tapos hindi mo pa siya na-out sa market, but you would like to find out if your product can be profitable in terms of the reception of certain individuals, certain sectors that you would like to capture, no, doon sa product names. For example, ako, isa akong producer ng show, ng isang bagong series sa States, which is ginagawa talaga sa States, may pilot episode. So yung pilot episode na yon, bubuin niya, ipoproduce niya yung script for that episode. Pero before it goes on air, ipapalabas muna siya doon sa mga tao na invited for a focus group discussion. So halimbawa, okay, gusto ko ang ma-capture ng palabas na to ay mga teenagers. So I will invite representatives coming, theoretical sampling or purposive sampling. I-invite ako ng mga participants na pwedeng maging captive audience nung bagong episode na yon, like teenagers, or gusto ko mga nanay. Pero gusto ko rin na makapag-involve ng mga tao na hindi siya yung target audience ko for that show, pero baka may possibility na maging audience ko siya eventually. Halimbawa, mga taxi drivers, for example. So in-invite ko sila sa isang palabas, pinalabas ko yung show, then I ask for their opinion. Tapos I ask them kung ano yung sa tingin nila ay pwedeng maging revisions ng show na yon para mas maging maganda siya. At kapag it goes on air, mas malaki yung market na makakapture niya. So ang gagawin doon ng producer, ita-take note niya yung mga comments at i-incorporate niya doon sa palabas para pag it finally goes on air, may possibility na ma-capture niya yung different demographics based on their evaluation or answer during the focus group discussion.
Thank you, sir. So talagang ano po siya, essential siya na aspect ng research when it comes to yung market research o yung sa pag-explore ng iba't ibang products pa na pwedeng i-venture ng ating mga companies. So thank you, sir. Sir, we have a comment from Mangayo Kita. I think this is for your confirmation or clarification. Sabi niya po, since details on qualitative research vary along the way as we read or reread and or interact with our respondents thoroughly, and so it goes that research proposal is expected to be revised twice or more until the final output is done. Your comment on that, sir?
There's a likelihood that will happen. And I have to be honest na for undergraduate students or people doing their master's thesis or dissertation, the likelihood is very huge. It's very likely that your initial proposal will be revised based on the data that you have already collected. Because just like what I have been reiterating, it's a heuristic and iterative process. No? But there are also instances wherein that's no longer necessary, most especially if you're not really aiming for the the extreme end of the interpretive scale na you are getting a healthy mix of inductive and deductive approaches in conceptualizing your research, no? And at the same time, operationalizing your research problem. So, pwede na hindi ka na mag-revise. Pero malaki yung chances na mababago talaga siya. Kasi if you allow your data to speak, bababago din yung lens na ginagamit mo on how you see them, on how you establish your relationship with your data. So, very good comment. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Kayo ba, sir, may experience ba po kayo on qualitative research na from the data itself, biglang nabago o na-divert ba yung mismong study mo?
Marami. Marami.
Too many to mention ba po?
Oo, marami. Although kasi it will really help if you as early as possible, you read any existing literature that you will find that could help you orientate your data collection and data analysis. Maganda na sa simula pa lang ay, yun nga, kasi this is actually a debate, no? Na kung gagamit ba ng initial codes or sensitizing concept or hindi. On the first side of the debate ay hindi siya kailangan. Most especially kung grounded yung analysis. Kasi kapag gumamit ka na agad ng certain framework before you access the data, ibig sabihin nun, hindi mo hinayaan na yung data magsalita. Parang hinayaan mo yung framework na i-overpower yung data. That's the one side of the debate. The other side of the debate naman ay yung kailangan natin ng sensitizing concept para not only for theoretical reasons but also for practical reasons. Theoretical in a sense na ang ginagawa natin dapat may basis at yung basis natin ay yung mga already accepted na findings, conclusions, themes from existing literature. At the same time, it's practical dahil our research is time-bound. It has to end. It really has to end. Hindi pwedeng habang buhay na stuck ka dun sa iterative process ng pabalik-balik. Kailangan meron kang conscientious ka and mindful ka na this is where I put my foot down and this is where I end all this confusion, no, and proceed with my analysis as based on what I have right now.
Thank you, sir. So coming from your personal sentiments and experience as a qualitative research.
But
Sige, sir.
Josh, just to add, no, I think it's really helpful that you that you maintain a healthy and constant communication with your supervisors or advisor. Qualitative research, you are the main instrument in your qualitative research analysis. That's a fact, no? But it won't hurt if you look for other people who can guide you, can give you support, no, to finally somehow give clarity to all this confusion and this inundating wave of data. Kaya I'm very thankful for Dr. Julian Baldoco-Bello, our speaker a few sessions back, no? Because she really helped me. She did not only validate my findings, no, but she also gave me very helpful pieces of advice, no, in order to organize my data more in a more manageable way. So, huwag kayong matakot sa mga advisors nyo. Lalo na kung qualitative researchers kayo, mag-reach out kayo sa kanila at pakinggan nyo sila. No, maintain a healthy and constant communication with them.
Thank you, sir. And shout out na rin po siguro, sir, sa inyo pong mga advices ngayong semester na ito na I'm sure parang may nakita po akong isa na nanonood po ngayon hindi ko lang po babanggitin ang kanyang ngalan. Pero ayun po. So I agree with you, sir, na always consult with your supervisor or your advisor in your study. So ito po, sir, we have two questions pero I will just combine them po kasi they are about the guide questions in qualitative research from Laarni Dumag and Christian Foronda. Ang essence po ng question nila is, how do we check the validity and reliability of our questions or guide questions for interviews? Do they need to be validated by experts, or do we have to seek seek for validation from references? Ano pong take niyo doon, sir? Guide
Okay.
questions, validity.
Okay, sige. Una, go back to your research question. Ano ba yung gusto mong ma-answer na problem? So, kailangan mo i-make sure na yung interview questions mo would give you would provide you an entry point, no? In order to answer the research questions at hand, no? Pero pangalawa, yung terms na ginagamit natin, they are more applicable to quantitative research, no? Yung questioning the validity of the research instrument or the reliability of the questions, no? Mas applicable sila sa quantitative research dahil for qualitative research, normally fina-facilitate lang natin yung sharing ng participants natin. Ayaw natin silang diktahan or ayaw nating magkaroon ng predetermined responses doon sa sagot nila. But I assume na mga high school students yung mga nagtatanong ngayon, no? Kasi you are still starting out in your venture towards becoming an experienced qualitative researcher. So it would help, no, that yes, definitely you may consult your advisor or supervisor if the questions are language sensitive, no, in a sense na walang ma-offend dun sa questions, and if they are structured properly, ibig sabihin nun ay makakapag-facilitate siya ng discussion, no, open-ended siya. At the same time, para ma-check kung siya ba ay clear at hindi misleading yung question, no? Or you may also look for existing studies na nag-aral ng similar phenomena at tingnan kung ano nga ba yung mga research questions na ginamit nila para makatulong sa'yo na i-craft din yung interview guide mo. Pero ito yung tip ko, huwag niyong hayaan na maging sobrang structured nung interview guide nyo. Allow room for discussion, allow room for for something that is surprising. Allow for room for things that are unexpected, no? Kasi doon natin makikita sa in-betweens yung richness ng data natin.
Thank you for that, Sir JM. So that is regarding sa validity or ensuring the validity of our of our guide questions. Sa'yo din pala babalik yung tanong sa yung research questions, sa scope ng research mo. So, and I think, sir, dito po papasok yung usapin natin with regards po dun sa topic natin with Dr. Custodio on research ethics, on asking the right, proper, and siguro non-offensive questions po, no? Dito din papasok po yun.
Right. So kailangan parang may other eyes na magko-call out sa atin kung leading nga ba yung questions natin or kung ano ba siya, kung may mga ginagamit tayo ng mga words na hindi tama, ganun, or hindi siya politically correct.
Kasi sir, di ba po itong our use of words have an effect on how our respondents will, or our participants would respond. Kasi minsan yung questions natin, naka-frame siya in a manner na talagang pipigain mo siya na mag-lead dito sa particular answer na to, which is hindi tama, di ba, sir?
Right. Ito yung sinasabi natin, Josh, na for the interpretive social scientist or scholar, ang objectivity ay isang myth, no? Na hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na neutral ka in conducting research kasi the questions that you ask already frame the kind of responses that you will get. And the language that you use in framing those questions will definitely have an effect on your respondents or your participants. So, dahil hindi natin yung may iwasan, sinasabi ng mga qualitative researchers na i-embrace natin, i-acknowledge natin, isulat natin doon sa mismong thesis natin, sa research paper natin, yung positionalities natin that may have a direct or indirect influence on our analysis.
Thank you, Sir JM. So proceed po tayo with the next question. Although madami po, sir, pero I'll just read konti na, mga siguro last three to take note of sa ating time po. From Ito Serizawa po, ang question niya, sir, is, how do we properly make use of triangulation in establishing truthfulness of a study? May sample or may example ba daw po kayong masasite regarding triangulation?
Right, okay. Thank you for the question, no? Sige. Una, correct naman, no? Kasi parang ina-establish din naman natin or tinatry natin i-grasp yung truth or katotohanan in qualitative research. But ang truth na ating hinahanap sa qualitative research ay truths, multiple truth, no? So what might be true to a particular group might not be cannot be the same for a different group, no? Kasi meron silang sarili nilang meaning making process, no? But to answer the question, kagaya ng nabanggit ko kanina, pwede tayong mag-triangulate una by inviting different data sources. So pwede tayo, ano ibig sabihin natin ng data sources? We invite different individuals, no, who can provide us a clear picture of the phenomenon we are studying, no? Or we can also invite individuals based on time and spatial variables. Ano ibig sabihin nun? We invite participants or conduct interviews this year, but we return to them after a few months, after a few weeks probably, to check if their construction of reality some time ago would still be consistent to the way they understand their reality currently, no? Pangatlo, yung spatial na sinasabi ko, you may invite people or interviewees from different locations, no? If the phenomenon is not geographic based. So for example, gusto mong aralin yung getting booster shots, no? Pwede mong aralin people from Manila, from Southern Luzon, from the Visayas, no? Para makita kung similar nga ba yung essence or experiences nito. That's one. Pangalawa ay yung triangulation based on the investigators, no? Pwede kayong humanap ng kapartner, teammate, no? That will help you make sense or analyze the data para hindi lang kayo yung gumagawa. So para merong somebody else who will confirm kung nag-make sense ba yung thought processes natin. And then the last one, triangulate by using various methods, no, of collecting data. So for example, you begin with an individual interview. Then you follow that up after interviewing all of your participants, you invite them for a group interview to ask further questions. And while you are establishing rapport, you conduct participant observation. Pwede yun. Pwede rin natin siyang gawin.
Thank you, sir. So that's very good example po with regards to triangulation. So eto naman po, sir, ang next question from Nad Royce. Ang sabi niya po, what is the main difference between content analysis and thematic analysis?
Okay, that's also a very good question, no? And very debatable. Very debatable. Kasi mag-vary siya based on your philosophical worldview. Kasi for example, in qualitative research, meron tayong tinatawag na discourse analysis. Sinasabi ng discourse analysis that content analysis is essentially a discourse analysis because you are studying words, language, no, or how they appear, no. Pero para sa ating lahat na nandito, ito yung pwede kong i-explain or i-define ngayon na difference nila. Pag content analysis, we are focusing on the content, what has been said, the message. And we usually analyze that through quantitative data, quantitative research design, no? So for example, inaral mo yung balita, no? Sa balita, ilang beses sinabi yung salitang tokhang, ilang beses nag-appear yung salitang kill, ilang beses na nag-appear yung salitang kaliwa, no? Yung mga ganon. So binibilang natin sila. In our in my experience, no, when I conducted the content analysis a few years back, no, ang inaral namin ay yung reporting through reporting ng Typhoon Yolanda nung before it hit the country, no. So inaral namin, tinignan namin kung may absence or presence ba ng certain words that would popularize or laymanize the the tsunami, no, or yung daluyong, no. And after namin makita kung gaano karami pinakita, binanggit yung mga salita, mga words, mga visual cues na yon, then we are able to establish correlation. Kasi kinonvert namin siya into numerical code. So that's very quantitative. Textual analysis, on the other hand, sees your data as a text. And a text is not just a message. A text is a social text. Meron siyang social context. Meaning to say, it's produced historically through interaction. Meron siyang pinanggalingan at meron siyang kine-create na reality when a text is produced. At ayun yung binibigyan natin ng attention. And when we do that, we don't analyze the text based on we don't convert the text into numerical codes. Kino-convert natin siya based on the meanings na tinetel niya, at the same time kung ano yung kine-create niya once na ma-produce yung text na yun. So I hope na answer ko yung question.
Thank you, Sir JM. Which leads us po to our, let's see, third to the last na question po. So, ang question po ni Agnes Valencia Raimundo, do we apply homogeneity in the selection of research participants in qualitative designs? Please enlighten us on intuiting. Thank you.
That's also a very good question, no? And it will depend on the source that you are reading, no? Pag homogeneous kasi, well, it's okay kasi parang iisa sila ng opinion. Kaso ang nangyayari doon, maganda yon if you want to look for the commonalities in their experience. Pero kung ang gusto mong tingnan ay kung saan yung point of diversion nila, ano yung unique experience nila, baka hindi appropriate na they're coming from the same demographics. Intuition, no, kailangan makita mo even without you knowing why, no, kung ano yung characteristics nila at kung ano probably yung i-share nila sa iyo na data. Yan. So kailangan may may keen attention ka to detail and really know how to observe.
Thank you, sir. Ang dami po nagpapasalamat po sa ating comment sections. Very po sir, very comprehensive ang naging discussion po natin ngayong umaga about qualitative research. Marami daw po silang naging enlightening moments with regards to quality research. Ito po sir yung last two questions po siguro. So ipag-combine ko na po kasi they are about the participants. So from Econ C. Condes and Kelsey Isatam. Ang question po nila, sir, is, may required number of participants ba daw po tayo in qualitative research na dapat iset with regards to data gathering, with regards to data gathering? And also po, ibuntot ko na rin po doon yung question po na do we need to include all transcripts of the participants, yung transcriptions natin, sir, sa appendices ng ating research? Sige po, sir.
Okay. Sige, una dun sa required number of participants, wala tayong rule of thumb with regard to that, no? Dahil magbe-base yung number of participants, just like what I said, doon sa purpose ng study mo, no? Kasi for example, if you want to study the individual experiences of people about a certain phenomenon, it won't be helpful to invite a lot of individuals to be part of your study. Kasi mawawala yung nuance mo doon sa subjectivity ng isang tao na magsasabi ng kanyang kwento, no? Pero may mga instances naman, may mga certain research questions na inaalaw yung ganun, na mag-a-ask ka magi-invite ka ng medyo maraming participants, no? Ang tip ko ay gumamit tayo ng theoretical sampling sa ating pag-figure out kung ilan nga ba yung participants natin. So ano meron doon sa theoretical sampling? Essentially, purposive sampling din siya. Pero dito, meron ka ng hint based on theories, based on previous literature, kung ano nga ba yung characteristics ng mga participants mo that could provide a rich text or data, no, that would be helpful for you. So halimbawa, gusto mong aralin yung mga experiences ng graduate school students in remote learning. So pwede mong tingnan, okay, ano nga ba yung breakdown ng characteristics ng mga graduate school students? Pwedeng, gusto kong tingnan yung lalaki, babae. Gusto kong tingnan yung international students, saka Filipino students, local students dito sa Philippines. So mayroon kang mga sineset na mga criteria, purposeful yon. Tapos invite ka ng 1 or 2 participants from each categories, no, na sa tingin mo ay makakapag-provide ng rich data sa'yo. Pero hindi doon natatapos kasi kagaya ng sinasabi ko kanina, kung feeling mo ay kulang pa yung data mo at hindi mo pa nasa-saturate yung data mo, then pwede ka pang mag-invite, pwede ka pang magdagdag. So the initial number of participants that you have set might not be final. Pwede siyang padagdag ng padagdag hanggang sa makabuo ka ng isang rich na discussion. Pero, wag naman tayong aabot ng sobrang dami, no? So halimbawa, for me, sa mga advices ko, inaalaw ko na okay, mga ano lang, begin with 4 or begin with 6 na participants. Tapos saka natin pag-usapan, saka natin pag-isinsin kung kailangan pa ba nating magdagdag. Pero yung 4 na yon, hindi naman kasi sabay-sabay interviewin mo sila, di ba? So, halimbawa, nagsimula ka na sa interview ng isang tao, pangalawang tao, pangatlong tao, tapos na-realize mo na parang rich na to, ang dami ko nang nakuha. So, yung initial mo na sinet na 4 or 6, pwedeng ma-shorten kung sa tingin mo ay saturated na yung data. So again, magde-depend po talaga siya sa atin as a researcher. Tayo yung may final say. Now to the next question, it depends, no? It depends, no? For the sake of transparency, meron pwede i-allow na yung mga transcript natin ay ipakita natin. Pero dapat we still follow yung ethical considerations natin. Kailangan ay anonymous, yung identities ng mga tao na nandun. At the same time, conscious din tayo kasi baka mamaya magamit yung data natin ng ibang researchers without our consent. So kailangan malinaw sa'yo kung ano bang gusto mong mangyari dun sa data mo, sa raw data mo. Kung gusto mo ba siyang ibahagi sa publiko, para makakapag-come up sila ng sarili nilang conclusion or findings based on your data para magkaroon ng comparison yung data mo doon sa yung findings mo doon sa naging findings nila. Pero ngayon no mas practice na hindi yung mismo buong transcription yung ating ina-append, pero just an extract of the transcript para na rin magkaroon ng opportunity yung researcher na gamitin ulit yung data niya na hindi niya muna ibibigay. Akin na muna to kasi pwede pa ako mag-come up ng other research out of my data out of the data that I have.
Thank you, sir. So again, babalik po ulit yung tanong sa inyo on what is your study about? Ano yung research questions mo?
Josh, ano ko lang, siguro final na sabihin ko lang din. Actually, yung ginawa natin, siya ay tinatalakay ng isang buong semestre, minsan pa nga isang buong taon. So, kinondense talaga natin lahat ito sa 1 to 2 hours na session natin. So, marami talaga tayong na-miss out. But hopefully, ay helpful ito sa ating mga participants. At the same time, mahirap po talagang ituro ang qualitative research. Kasi kailangan mo nang ma-experience mo siya bago mo siya fully ma-appreciate. No? So, ang laking challenge talaga sa amin, sa mga educators, na ituro yung qualitative research because walang step-by-step process ang qualitative research, unlike quantitative research, na once na okay na yung conceptualization mo, na operationalize mo na lahat, mabilis na lang yung data collection, mabilis na lang yung analysis, mabilis na lang yung conclusion, saka yung wrap up. Pero dito hindi. Kasi nagva-vary yung experiences, nagva-vary yung mga sinishare sa atin ng mga methods or strategies ng iba't ibang mga sources. So talagang nakakarindi minsan na sa'yo talaga manggagaling. Ikaw talaga yung magde-decide kung ano yung gusto mong mangyari. Pero it doesn't mean na you can do anything under the sun. Na parang bahala na, o ito na lang, ito na lang. Hindi. Kasi kanina sinabi ko yung evaluation natin, how do we evaluate qualitative research? So may rigor pa din siya. Kailangan ay panatilihin natin na nag-a-abide sa scientific rigor yung ating qualitative research, most especially yung analysis part.
Thank you, Sir JM. And with that po, your final words po siguro, sir, final advice po sa ating mga soon-to-be qualitative researchers, sa ating mga researchers na magbe-venture into the qualitative aspect or the qualitative world. Ano pong inyong mga final words of advice, sir, sa kanila po? Thank you po.
Thank you, Josh. Ang advice ko ay huwag kayong matakot. Huwag kayong matakot, huwag kayong kabahan sa qualitative research. I know it looks so scary, it looks so intimidating, and that's good. That's good na you feel that way. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, nag-e-expand yung territory nyo. You are very used to doing research based on the positivist paradigm. But qualitative research provides us an avenue to look at the world in a different way, to take a second look at the world in order to highlight surface meaning, certain injustices, no, with the hope of not only reinforcing what has been done, but to provide alternative solutions, alternative insights into the pressing problems that we continually face. So sa mga researchers natin dito, huwag kayong matakot, huwag kayong kabahan, enjoy the process, and promise you will become a different person once you have tried qualitative research. Kasi it will not only harness and polish your critical and analytical thinking skills, it will also refine your writing skills, but most especially, it will broaden your horizon. Yung term natin sa sociology, yung verstehen. No? Ma-apply nyo yon kahit tapos na kayo sa research nyo. Mas magkakaroon kayo ng malawak na pangunawa sa mundong inyong ginagalawan. And you will start asking the whys of why we exist, of why we think this way, of why we behave this way, no? And yung mga answers na yon, yung mas makakapag-propel sa atin, makakapag-move forward sa atin bilang mamamayan at bilang mga tao. So yun lang. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Sir JM. There you have it, our dear speaker for this morning on Qualitative Research, Assistant Professor John Mervin L. Embate. And siguro, sir, i-plug ko na lang po ulit no, yung webinar series ng UPLB Office for the Institutional Development in Higher Education. Kasi po yung ano nila, no, yung series po nila deals more on the specific aspects on qualitative research. For example, in the social sciences, the humanities. So you might want to check it out sa kanilang Facebook page po. UPLB Office for Institutional Development in Higher Education. So Team LRC, hashtag Team LRC would like to take this opportunity to thank our valuable speaker for his valuable time. So let me read the citation for the certificate. UPLB, University of the Philippines, Los Baños Learning Resource Center presents the Certificate of Appreciation to John Mervin L. Embate for serving as resource speaker during the webinar series Research is Life, How to Ace Your Research Paper, during the 8th session entitled Quality Assured, Qualitative Research and Data Analysis, held today, May 13, 2022, at the Learning Resource Center, UPLB College, Laguna. Signed by Janet H. Malata Silva, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. So thank you very much, Sir JM. So marami po talagang natutunan ng ating mga participants ngayong araw na ito. So to proceed po for the evaluation of our session, please do not forget to evaluate our session this afternoon. So I already placed it or pinned it rather in the comments section. Ayan. Okay. So our team will deeply appreciate your comments and suggestions. So kindly answer the evaluation form to secure your e-certificate of attendance. So it's being shown on your screen right now. Kindly take a screenshot sa ating mga teachers. You also want to scan the QR code at madadala po kayo diretso na dun sa evaluation form. And please be reminded that the deadline of responses is only until 10 p.m. tonight. So please make sure to answer it before our deadline. So I'll give you a few more seconds to take a screenshot of our evaluation link. Yan. Okay, so we hope that we all gain inspirations and valuable insights from our speaker this morning. So just a few reminders for our next session. So I invite you, our dear participants, to join us in our next session on Tuesday, May 17th. So that's on a Tuesday, also still at 9 a.m., entitled It's Gonna Be All Right, Writing the Manuscript and Getting Published. So we will be having Associate Professor Girly Nora A. Abrigo of the Department of Social Sciences here in UPLB to be our speaker. So we will be wrapping up na yung mga napag-usapan natin throughout our previous sessions. So we're going to talk about yung pagsusulat na, yung writing proper, and how do we get our studies or our research papers published in journals and the like, diba? So 2 more sessions to go, guys. Malapit na natin ma-ace ang ating research paper. So kapit lamang po tayo at sabay-sabay po natin take advantage ang mga learning opportunities in this webinar series. So at this point, we would like to recognize and thank our team, #Team LRC, and our Research is Life team, headed by our director and our speaker for this morning, Sir J.M. Embate, with the support of our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Dr. Janet H. Malata Silva. On our technical side is our Project Development Associate, Ms. Ana Margarita S. Palma. And a big shout out to Team LRC's members, Ms. Cheryl Hermosa Ebron and Ms. Allen Lee Mangente, and Mr. Elmer Balatian. So to end, I would like to invite everyone to have points of reflection with ourselves, especially with our topic today on qualitative research. So your research would always reflect on who you are and what are your beliefs, what are your insights in life. So your research is also like your way of manifesting yourself to the world. It's a way of leaving your mark into the world. So I invite everyone to again explore both the qualitative and quantitative research aspects. So #research is life. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Stay hopeful, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you.